So, I have a disagreement with my past self.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me. I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
I can't physically travel back in time and correct it, but I can provide an updated perspective after all these years. Now, it'd be foolish to pretend that there's an endpoint to self-improvement, but in spite of that, I can say with certainty that I was too harsh on the Spectacular Spider-Man. Although it's not flawless, and I will acknowledge when I straight up don't have a defense for something, there's a lot I can say to debunk what I've said in the past. These videos were made at a time where I was much harsher on stories than I think is fair nowadays upon reevaluation. And although the point of this is to look at myself through a critical eye, I actually appreciate that this reaffirms why I thought this show was great in the first place when I was growing up. Contrary to the self-criticism I'll be providing, it's a great feeling when something you thought didn't hold up could actually be defended in retrospect. With that said,
Hey, if it's Make Fun of Flash Day, how can I help?
The first episode introduces us to the show by having Spider-Man swing around the city, telling us that he's been Spider-Man since his summer vacation started, and he has one night before school starts.
How I spent my summer vacation. I can sum it up in one glorious, hyphenated word. Spider-Man.
Later on in the episode, we also learned that he got his powers during a field trip during the spring of his previous school year. So for at least an entire summer, Spider-Man has been openly swinging around and fighting crime without attempting to make his existence unknown or hidden to any capacity. He even remarks on catching Flint and Alex for the third time this summer, both of which have been working for the big man, also known as Tombstone.
Oh no, not again!
What is this, Markle, like the third time this summer?
Spider-Man's existence should be painfully obvious by now, especially for someone like Tombstone, who would keep tabs on how the city is operating to make sure his criminal organization can run smoothly. But this episode tells us that Tombstone only got confirmation of his existence the first time we see Spider-Man on screen, which is the same night right before Peter starts school.
Establishing patterns of movement took all summer, but last night we had confirmation. The Spider-Man is real.
How did it take them this long to confirm the existence of Spider-Man if he has been actively conspicuous for an entire summer?
okay, so a few things to cover from the jump. Yes, Tombstone should be overseeing what's happening in the city, but this is the first visible footage he has of him. Sure, it is possible that people on their phones catch him, but it's also possible that Spider-Man is constantly moving rather than posing for the camera, which leads to unclear photos of him. And given that he hasn't fought a supervillain yet, there's less reason for Spider-Man to stick around the scene for prolonged periods of time. And since there isn't any prior experience with Spider-Man, this can initially be seen as a deliberate hoax, either to scare criminals off the streets or to become an excuse for criminals to fail. Either way, the lack of experience with Spider-Man and the lack of clear images or footage of him could factor into why Tombstone didn't believe his existence was confirmed. Now, people might point to the wrestling arena and how the crowd had people taking photos, but I imagine that even if those did get released, outsiders might have seen this as some staged event to garner attention. Spider-Man doesn't even use much of his powers, nor is it even confirmed if he has powers or is simply using tech, or if the Crusher was in on the potentially staged event. So this should explain why Tombstone didn't think Spider-Man's existence was confirmed until he staged a crime specifically to see him in action.
If you never accomplished anything as a young man, who'd believe you created tech flight as an old one?
This drives Adrian to suit up as the Vulture and attempt to threaten Norman into giving him the credit he deserves, paying him compensation, and publicly apologizing for stealing his work. And while this works in concept, it doesn't in execution.
You will announce to the world that Adrian Toombs is the genius behind tech flight. You will pay me all that I am owed, and you will publicly apologize for stealing my invention!
Vulture's big brain plan is to wear a flight suit that doesn't have a mask to conceal his identity, and use the suit to grab Norman, fly him around, and ask him to give him everything he believes he is owed. Firstly, your life is over once Norman is let go. Your face is exposed, Norman knows your name, and the police would be able to link your identity to your face. So even if Norman does everything you ask him to, you won't be able to enjoy all that because you'll be too busy stuck in prison.
But the Vulture does have a workaround for it. Yes, he'll be known as a criminal and won't be able to live in the US anymore, but if he receives the money, he can simply fly off to another country and use the remains of his money to live on his own. Whether his flight tech can travel that far is yet to be stated, and given that it is science fiction, it's not unreasonable to assume that his wings could be advanced enough to send him away from America and still remain intact.
Instead of capturing Osborn, why not capture someone like Harry in order to hold him hostage? If Harry is held hostage, Norman can't just go to a police station and remain protected, because he loses Harry if he goes against Vulture's orders.
But Norman himself should be enough. All Vulture needs to do is monitor Norman while he makes his payments and prepares a statement to read to the public. And Vulture can ensure that Norman records that confession for people.
Peter tells Harry to call the cops and removes his shoes on the balcony, then leaves them there only to jump off. Wait a minute, why leave a trace of your own belongings behind after jumping off that building and finding a place to change into your Spider-Man uniform? I understand it's an emergency and he has to take a risk with his identity, but there's a couple things to consider. Firstly, he could just take his shoes off wherever he's going to leave his regular clothing.
This is ultimately a nitpick, but this is fair. I don't know why he left his shoes there instead of simply jumping off and leaving his shoes wherever he leaves the rest of his clothes.
Spider-Man attempts to save Norman from falling and catches him. Vulture chases down Spider-Man upon noticing him. Now, it's important to consider that Vulture's ability to fly is far quicker than Spider-Man's ability to swing. Yet while Spider-Man is carrying Norman, somehow he is traveling faster than Vulture at points, and it takes Vulture very long to catch up to Spider-Man. Spider-Man even stops on the side of a wall, not even moving at a quick pace, and Vulture is just still behind Spider-Man after chasing him for over 20 seconds.
If you rewatch the scene, you may notice that Vulture is trying to communicate out of genuine curiosity.
Who are you, Spider-Man? I thought you were a myth.
Soon after this is when Spider-Man gets his web cut off by Vulture, so he does catch up after processing what he just saw.
So soon afterwards, he decided it was a good idea to climb up the side of the Daily Bugle, out in the open, where anybody could see him, with no suit or mask to conceal his identity.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man goes looking for his shoes back at Osborn's home. He does this at the same time Norman happens to be arriving at his home from his car, which allows him to cross paths with the Vulture again.
Okay, so this is a form of criticism that started to resonate with me less and less over the years, because oftentimes it boils down to, if this event went differently, then things would play out differently. Therefore, it's a plot convenience. And sure, yeah, but welcome to the real world. There are many events in your life that you can probably point to that are lucky or rely on coincidences in order to take place. There's probably someone you met before because of a sheer coincidence. There's probably something pivotal that you've learned at some point because of a coincidence. Something being convenient or coincidental isn't bad writing. It's a basic part of living. I think it can certainly feel lazy if coincidences are constantly stacked on top of each other without any narrative purpose or point in the story, but ultimately pointing out a story's coincidences doesn't really highlight a hit on its cause and effect.
Also, if Vulture knew that Osborn was inside the car and followed it around the city, why didn't he just start by cutting the car open if he was willing to do so, like he does later on?
I assume he was waiting at Osborn's house rather than following the car. He wouldn't have known where Osborn was prior unless he decided to stalk him at a known location such as his house, which is why he shows up there.
Also, why did Vulture announce his presence to Osborn instead of just quickly flying in to grab him, which gives him the littlest chance of being able to react in time?
Firstly, for intimidation. Secondly, he doesn't think Norman has a high chance of actually reacting in time. And even if he does, nobody but Spider-Man can stop him, and he had no way of knowing that he'd happen to be at the same location at the same time.
Vulture, just cut off Spider-Man's web. You've done it before. What the hell are you doing right now? Cut it. Cut it. Cut it. Cut it.
The Vulture could be trying to sway Spider-Man into an object to deter his involvement, which is better for the long term than cutting the web, because Spider-Man could just shoot another at him right away.
The Enforcers are also here to take the opportunity to attack Spider-Man while he is distracted by the Vulture. They start by shooting a net to restrain him, which I think is a fine plan so far. But then, instead of just shooting at Spider-Man with the helicopter while Spider-Man is restrained, their plan is to send Ox and Fancy Dan to take on Spider-Man, someone with super strength, super agility, and yes, super durability in hand-to-hand combat.
They're underestimating Spider-Man and have the confidence that they'll win due to their skill set and the fact that it's a 3v1. They also want to challenge Spider-Man rather than simply kill him.
Boys need a workout. Now, no turning tail.
Why the fuck would Ox jump off the building to chase after Spider-Man?
So if we could just postpone... Now, I know you can tear right through that, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Ox, what the fuck did you think was gonna happen? You were even restraining Spider-Man and not allowing him to use his webs. Both of you are dead if what you're trying to do works.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Vulture takes advantage of this distraction and catches up to Norman's car. He cuts open the middle area. Wait, hold the fuck up. He could have used the wing blades to stab the tires, which would heavily slow it down. Or why not cut open a door to the driver's seat so he can either force the driver to stop the car while having his wing blade up to his neck, or just remove the driver and get into the driver's seat to hit the brakes? Why did you make this so needlessly complicated?
If Vulture needs Norman alive to give him the money and make a statement, killing the driver or slashing the tires could risk Norman's death. Threatening the driver could result in the same because before Vulture gets a word out, the driver could try turning the other way in panic, and distracted driving could cause deadly car crashes.
Did you just try to punch Norman instead of grabbing him and flying him out of the car? What are you hoping to achieve doing that?
He wants to knock him out so he's less of a struggle to grab.
Why do you defend that thief Osborn?
Maybe because you didn't fucking tell him anything, you dipshit.
Well, he's telling him right now in the scene, dipshit.
Also, Spider-Man was literally floating in place for a good period of time, and we know that the helicopter is actively following Spider-Man. Shoot him.
But it takes time to properly aim, as shown earlier.
Let's squash us a bug.
So Spider-Man probably moved out of the way before it was done focusing its aim, so he decided to shoot it rapid fire afterwards.
Okay, Spider-Man just intentionally clipped part of Vulture's wings and clashed it against the helicopter. His plan was to disable Vulture's flight tech in a way that also disables Montana's helicopter, which would result in it falling and crashing. He also didn't know Vulture could remain airborne due to being surprised when he comments on it.
My wing! I can't steer! Yeah, but you're still airborne. How does that work exactly?
So he believed Vulture would have just fallen, so either he leaves the helicopter to fall to save Vulture, or he leaves Vulture to fall to save the helicopter. Either way, he is going against his no-kill rule, or he is risking civilian casualties due to a helicopter crash, and breaking his no-kill rule anyway, since this could get Montana killed.
Okay, so there is a flaw here, but you're wildly blowing it out of proportion. Spider-Man didn't have much of a choice as far as clipping Vulture's wings. He didn't have an immediate solution, and the helicopter was firing shots. So the longer this fight goes, the greater the risk of civilians being affected by those shots. So Spider-Man took a risk in the heat of the moment. And sure, he could have caught the helicopter if Vulture was staying airborne.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Overall, this episode is a 2 out of 10. Not a strong start.
Okay, that's ridiculously exaggerated. Even if I were to agree with all the points you're making, that doesn't justify calling the episode bad, let alone a 2 out of 10. At most, you've highlighted that the villains are a bit dumb, the hero is a bit dumb, and there's some plot holes here and there, but none of this really defeats Peter's arc about gratitude in this episode, or the other main characters they introduced. So in the grand scheme of things, even if these were all valid, this really doesn't damage as much as you're saying it is. And that's kind of the problem I'm having with your video on Season 1 and Season 2. Even when I end up agreeing with many of the criticisms, which is mostly apparent in Season 2, oftentimes they're not as damaging as you're making them out to be. But anyway, let's move on to the second episode.
Max literally saw how dangerous the control panel was to touch and just tried grabbing his tool anyway.
I suppose you can call this reckless, but in fairness, he at least has gloves on to protect himself, so it seems to me that he underestimated how dangerous the area actually was and assumed the gloves were enough.
I start to take issue with Peter randomly deciding to pick up a call with Aunt May. Peter just needlessly added a distraction to delay his ability to stop Electro, when as far as Peter knows, Electro can get an innocent civilian hurt or killed with the amount of damage he is causing.
Sure, but there's a degree of arrogance that plays into his mistakes here. Spider-Man has only fought 2 supervillains by this point, and expected his spider sense to enable him to avoid attacks. Peter has enough faith in his abilities that he can accept the call and stay in the fight. A reason he'd want to make sure that he catches Aunt May on the phone is because too many violations of her rules could make it more difficult for him to be Spider-Man, so it's worse off in the long term if he doesn't find a way to be Spider-Man and make sure he picks up May's calls.
He's also risking his identity if Aunt May hears the background noise and gets suspicious.
For the electricity, he could just blame that on a poor connection. Now, that doesn't cover the loud impact sounds, but he could feasibly blame that on construction work, since you can run into that anywhere in the city.
After Electro has left, he decides to go back home. The police tell him it's either a hospital bed or a jail cell after the damage he caused last night. Electro then rushes to Connor's lab to try getting cured. Dude, why the fuck are you smashing the materials Kurt may need in order to cure you? Not only is this counterproductive to his goals, but Kurt is a friend of yours. Do you not trust him to try helping you? He's not even giving Kurt the chance, he's just telling him, cure me now. Let him utilize his materials then. Let him think of a solution. Ignoring the fact Connors is under duress, he would help Max on his own volition.
The reason Max is doing this is because he's growing impatient and wants to pressure Kurt to work faster. Smashing some of his materials isn't smashing all of them, and he's only reacting this way because of his short temper. He's acting first, then thinking later.
What Electro should be doing is telling him to get to work as quickly as possible.
He is functionally doing that, just in a more unstable manner.
Don't hurt him. We'll find a cure. We just need time.
You're lying!
Why the fuck would Kurt lie about this? His life is being threatened, even after he showed clear intentions of trying to help Max. If Kurt could just end this all immediately, he would've, so it's clear he isn't lying about whether or not he has a cure.
Electro isn't thinking rationally. Right now he's completely unstable and is looking for any way to motivate Kurt to work faster. If he claims to believe Kurt is lying, then this would pressure him to getting the job done much faster.
Electro was literally about to just kill this innocent kid just because he had his phone out. Like, what the fuck? I thought Electro didn't want to hurt anyone. He was gonna fry some random kid when he didn't even pose a threat to him? I guess he has the Spider-Man 3 Sandman problem where his morals are inconsistent.
There's a difference between the two situations. We don't actually know how sincere Max was when he said he didn't want to hurt anyone. He could have said this just to save face from legal trouble.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
With Sandman, it's established that his past does haunt him and factors into his redemption, so that's why it's inconsistent for Sandman, while for Electro, we can't say he was ever sincere about caring if he hurts anyone.
You can dish it out, but...
Why did you allow Electro to have a chance to fight back? Why didn't you at least try webbing him up to restrain him?
Because he underestimated him after landing a significant blow to him.
Okay, maybe climbing a big metal tower wasn't the brightest idea.
You stupid.
Then get the fuck out of there, you moron. Why are you just staying there and allowing Electro to get closer?
Because he doesn't have a plan yet and intends to blindside him once he finds one. He could leave, but that requires him to swing around constantly, when it'd simply be easier and use less web fluid to simply dodge for the time being until he has a plan.
Why did you pick up a call with May again? What if Electro screams out your name on call?
Then he can claim he was watching the fight.
What if your phone gets fried?
That's happening no matter what if his phone is in his pocket. He's still dodging all of these shots while taking the call.
What if May gets suspicious about the background noise again?
Then lie about it again?
How the fuck is Electro missing literally all of these shots? There's even points where Spider-Man isn't moving at all, and electric bolts just fly past him. Without Spider-Man even dodging these blasts, Electro is just missing.
Okay, sure, maybe the animation should have been more detailed in those shots, but it's not unbelievable that Peter could just keep dodging it. He has spider sense and the enhanced reflexes needed to react in time.
Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
Electro was shocked by Spider-Man turning his exact direction, and I imagine the shots are not all in real time. Some of them must be taking place concurrently, but the differing perspectives allows us to perceive the action more clearly.
So I didn't mention this yet because it's only relevant now, but in the first 2 episodes, we see Kurt injecting himself with the lizard formula constantly. He has been using himself as a guinea pig to test his lizard formula. Fucking why? Kurt had no safety precautions or even previous tests done ahead of time prior to injecting himself with the formula. He didn't even test this formula on mice and assess the results like he does in The Amazing Spider-Man or the 90s animated series. This guy is just a fucking moron for this whole plot to happen.
We don't know enough about this version of Kurt Connors by this point to judge if he would run more tests before using himself as a guinea pig. If he's doing this early on, he's probably confident in his experience and his intellect that he won't need to run further tests, and he would be excited by the opportunity to regrow his arm.
Eddie takes it upon himself to go after the lizard and call them for a location. Peter tries to find an excuse to leave and decides to say Aunt May needs him home. Okay, but Peter, can't you just use the same excuse that Eddie used? Just say you're going to follow Eddie to look after him and make sure he's okay. Your disappearance can be explained by losing Eddie, since Eddie is much faster than him. And at that point in time, he can say he looked repeatedly for Kurt and just never found him.
I think Peter was just rushing for any random excuse and didn't care if it held up, and was planning to work on the part later. Now, my past self would probably argue that Peter makes the same excuse that I suggested here in earlier episodes.
Yeah, I tried to follow him on foot, and I ran for blocks, but yeah, I guess that was pretty useless.
Petey, what were you thinking last night?
That I should try to help?
And did you?
No. Old Petey's pretty useless, I guess.
But my counter is simple. Those excuses were made after Peter had time to plan his interactions after those fights were over. This is the start of the fight, and Peter has less time to think, and usually relies on the aftermath to provide a better excuse.
Spider-Man then gets into a brawl with the Lizard. Lizard manages to escape on the train, all the way to the Bronx Zoo. Wait a minute. Lizard should be staking out like a sore thumb after running around the city, going to the subway, then entering a train headed for the Bronx Zoo as its next stop. At no point throughout this entire final fight do the police ever show up, when if they did, they would have witnessed the battle and saw Kurt was the one who transformed into the Lizard once he gets cured.
But the Lizard is also insanely fast, and it's not that simple to just file a report. First of all, the subway has bad service, so a 911 call would already be difficult for those on the train. Second of all, the only one brave enough to keep following him was Eddie, but he doesn't want the cops involved yet.
Spider-Man is being gripped tightly inside the water, and is not being impaled by Lizard's claws somehow. Spider-Man has massive plot armor right here. He should be dead, and Kurt shouldn't be cured.
But the Lizard in this version is just a dumb animal that doesn't act on rhyme and reason. In the video, I also compare this to the Lizard failing to stab Peter in The Amazing Spider-Man in No Way Home, but the difference is that Lizard is more intelligent in those movies, considering he can talk and create chemical explosions on the spot, so he should be making more intelligent decisions. In the show, Lizard is just a dumb animal.
Eddie is sticking his neck out for the mission right here. Spider-Man does not know how far Eddie is, and if Lizard is chasing him at the moment. So instead of wasting time setting up the camera, he should be keeping an eye on Eddie to make sure he can safely bait the Lizard over here without being killed.
So, a couple things. Firstly, Peter has faith that Eddie is intelligent. He wouldn't bait the Lizard if he didn't think he could escape from him in time to bait him where he needs to be. Secondly, Peter has reason to believe Eddie can do this because he was on the football team, which requires fast running and great cardio.
You, quarterbacking for ESU?
Nah, hung up my jersey back in Midtown. I'm strictly a nerd now.
He assumed that Eddie would properly estimate how much distance he needs and how fast he needs to be for this plan to work. And lastly, even if something did go wrong, he would have heard of it and acted on it. But he can see the plan is working, so he doesn't need to do anything different.
Not to mention, Peter Parker's name being in the paper would come across as a big fuck you to Connors, because he would be responsible for the humiliating photos being plastered on the news.
From Peter's perspective, there already would be security footage that captures him, so it's not like he's exposing anything that's not already public, which is how he justifies taking these photos to help his financial situation. And yeah, it's a dick move, but Peter doesn't think it was for the reasons given earlier. The fact most of them are judging him for this demonstrates that the show is aware that this is a bad decision, even if done with good intentions.
Not only this, but Peter Parker is someone who regularly works with Connors, so if they know that Peter Parker, someone connected to Connors, was watching this entire fight go down on the same night that the ESU lab faces destruction, while the Lizard has visible clothes on that look just like what Connors wears regularly, while being the only one capable of getting good photos of the Lizard at this specific location, then he risks the police getting a better look at the Lizard and putting two and two together to realize that this could be connected to Connors.
They could do that, but that's not enough evidence. And to be honest, I don't expect Peter to think that far ahead anyway, because he's just a high school kid, not some top investigator. But even if he did, that's cause for suspicion at most, not concrete proof.
He didn't have to take the pictures or even have his name credited. He could have just requested to remain anonymous for safety reasons, and Jameson would have no qualms with complying with that request.
Does Peter know he can do this? Also, he never submitted good photos until now, so it's reasonable that he entered the conversation, shared the photos, then ran off to whatever else he had to do that day since he's busy. It could have easily slipped his mind because of how much stuff he has to deal with every day, so he forgot to address the technicalities behind how credit works and was more focused on the money.
Then we get into episode 4, and our first scene with Peter is seeing him sleep in his Spider-Man suit at his home, where Aunt May can walk in his room at any point for any reason.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
He probably got too tired after too much action that night, then laid down for a moment to rest. Not rest as in sleep, but rest as in taking a break. But when people do this, they sometimes fall asleep by accident. That's a good faith assumption you should have made here.
What were you even planning? You jump on his back and just rest there without doing anything? And don't tell me he was just trying to pull down Shocker, because if Spider-Man tried, he easily could. Shocker is a regular human.
Okay, it's not flawless.
But at least Spider-Man managed to trip him over. Okay, web him, 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 web him. Why did you just stop to chat with him, you idiot? Save that for later. Detaining the threat should be the top priority.
Okay, it's not flawless.
As a consequence, Peter isn't available to help Harry study for math. Wait, hold up. Let's break down the timeline of events. Peter leaves Harry to pick up a check at the Daily Bugle, and he says he'll be back in an hour, 2 tops. He then immediately swings to the Bugle to pick up his paycheck, while intending to head back to Harry as soon as he can. Jonah claims he emailed Peter to come 76 minutes ago, although Betty corrects him, and we find out it was actually 20 minutes ago.
Now where's that Parker guy? I emailed him 76 minutes ago!
It's only been 20 minutes, and I'm pretty sure you just kicked Peter Parker out.
Peter is hit with a 2-hour deadline to get photos of Spider-Man, causing him to immediately swing out and look for a crap to fight.
That costume freak sells paper, so I want another set of pics in my hands by deadline. You got 2 hours.
And by the time he arrives at the dumpster, he's still very confident that he will make the 2-hour deadline.
2 hours till deadline? No sweat.
This fight lasts like 3 to 4 minutes, and even though he loses the fight, he still has tons of photos that work, since Jameson accepts them later. So, we have 2 major issues now. Firstly, if Peter still had lots of time to spare by the time he set up his camera right before fighting Shocker, 3 to 4 minutes shouldn't be a long enough delay to prevent him from calling Harry and letting him know that he's ready to help him. Peter can also explain that he had a 2-hour deadline to get the photos, and Harry would be more understanding given that he needs these photos to help his aunt. Only 20 minutes passed after he first left Harry to reach the Bugle, and he still had plenty of time to spare right before fighting Shocker. So why did Peter end up ditching Harry instead of calling him to help after the fight was over, while having a perfectly valid explanation for why he might be late? No good reason. In fact, what makes this even worse is that Peter doesn't even make the deadline, despite the fact he would have been able to if he just gave them over to the Bugle soon after. Why is that? Because the next day he goes to school, and only goes back to the Bugle to turn in his photos after school ended, so even though he had spare time to make the deadline, he just decided not to.
Okay, so there's a few things to break down here. Yes, it's an issue that Peter didn't just go to the Bugle that night and he would have made the deadline just fine. And it's weird that there's no remark on the fact that he's only turning in the photos the next day after school, which is long after the 2-hour deadline. But I think it's fine that Peter helping Harry slipped his mind, given that he's trying to help his financial situation and has to focus on the bad guys having escaped. He also had to shower a lot of times to get rid of the smell, which is another distraction that would lead him to forgetting to help Harry.
And on top of that, Jameson doesn't even bring up to Peter that he missed the deadline. It's like the show just forgot basic continuity for the sake of drama.
Okay, it's not flawless.
But if that wasn't bad enough, surely Peter wouldn't have repeated this brain-dead fuck-up literally the next day, right?
Helping Harry must have really tuckered you out.
I totally blew me off, Pete!
Genius!
Okay, let's break down the timeline of events that led to Peter blowing up Harry for a second time. Peter promises to meet Harry tonight. After school, he heads to the Bugle to turn in his photos. He then gets advised to get a new camera, which he does soon afterwards with the intention of getting more photos, on the same night he's supposed to be helping Harry. When he goes to the store, it's closed because there just so happens to be Flint and Alex robbing at the same time Peter just so happened to show up. Contrivances aside, Spider-Man waited for Flint and Alex to show up near the truck while he was hiding, then webbed them just to tell them he wants a rematch with Shocker. Doesn't sound like a very busy encounter. All he had to do was just web a couple of guys and that's it. Once again, despite having time left over, he decided not to call Harry after leaving Flint and Alex, unless, even worse, he didn't call Harry because it was already too late, even though only a few minutes ago he was in front of the store waiting to buy a new camera with the intention to take photos that night, while not being busy with anything beforehand, unless we're meant to believe this was soon after he left the Bugle. Wait, but that just means there's a huge chunk of time between school ending and Peter going to the Bugle, meaning he wasted that valuable chunk of time doing what exactly? Whatever way we want to look at this, there is absolutely no reason Peter shouldn't have been able to help Harry, because when we look at all the events that happened this day, there should at least be a chunk of time where he would have been able to help Harry. And there were clear opportunities where he should have been able to help Harry on both nights that he ditched him.
This part is admittedly difficult for me to defend because what we're shown on screen isn't nearly eventful enough to justify why Peter couldn't have helped Harry that night. But I don't think it's completely impossible, as Peter could have looked for numerous other stores to buy a new camera, but simply didn't find any, which distracted him from helping Harry. Peter must have imagined the task of finding a new camera would be shorter than it ended up being, but the longevity of the process distracted him from the fact that he has to help Harry. I guess it could have been helpful if there was a line to at least imply that he was constantly searching, but you can still find an answer with the information we have.
I've got a lot riding on tomorrow's test. Maybe I should ask Gwen.
At that point, you probably should have just let Gwen help. Being extremely busy with work and having no way of controlling or knowing ahead of time is a good reason to bring up, and there isn't even a detriment to having Gwen help Harry instead.
Well, there is. Peter will seem less capable and he wants to show Harry that he cares. The point they're going for is that Peter is trying to be Spider-Man and be there for his friends, but he's struggling to find a way to make both work.
Shocker then leaves a trail for Spider-Man to pick up on. Spider-Man arrives to fight Shocker, then gets surprise attacked.
Shocky.
I have like a sixth sense. The Peter thing. It's not working though. I heard it wasn't working.
Okay, it's not flawless.
What the fuck, Peter? You were just gonna drop a chandelier onto Shocker while he was distracted? That actually works. This would crush and kill Shocker. He's a regular human being.
No, Shocker could defend himself with the shock gauntlets. He didn't stop him from doing so. He just used that to overwhelm him.
And it's not like we get a brief moment where he realizes he might have gone too far, like this pretty neat moment in Homecoming.
Are you guys okay? My bad, that was a little hard.
he just doubles down by intentionally dropping an entire building onto him, which would crush and kill Shocker if that's too much for his power to handle.
Okay, this is a bit overkill, especially since that same episode had Shocker trying to kill Spider-Man by crushing him with garbage. When Spider-Man has super durability, Shocker would have even less chances of survival if falling rubble was to crush him.
Not just that, but destroying the pillars maintaining the building structure risks part of the building falling in any direction. What if rubble falls onto the sidewalks or the streets?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Then we get into episode 5, and our first scene with Peter is seeing him mess around with his webbing in a room where Aunt May could enter at any moment and relies on Aunt May not knowing which way is up if she does enter.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
But Peter can tell May not to enter for any reason he comes up with, and it's within May's character to wait before entering if Peter says to. And if Peter is established to resort to tricks all the time, then surely webbing the junk on the ceiling would be consistent with that. And it's still fairly unlikely that she would look specifically upwards for the junk.
So instead of trying to conceal his identity to the best of his ability, which is shown earlier to be where his intentions lie, he openly relies on his powers while playing football at his school, and he even brushed aside his responsibility to go after Sandman to play some more football.
I can't let Harry lose his dad the way I lost Uncle Ben. As soon as school's out, I'm webbing up Sandman once
Hey,
and for...
Petey. Nice moves yesterday. Heard it's down to you, Harry, and Hobie Brown.
Of course, Sandman will still be around after tryouts, right?
Yeah, I can't defend this either. Maybe someone else will think of something solid, but this is a weird time to have this arc where Peter ignores his responsibilities in favor of the glory his powers can bring him, because that's literally the arc he had in his origin before he swore to never look the other way again. The football episode is probably the weakest episode in the series for this reason.
Move, 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 move.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Sandman tosses Spider-Man at a truck that falls over, and Spider-Man doesn't check if anyone was in that truck that needs help.
If there was a guy in there, then surely Peter would have heard a noise. It's also not even the best choice to take his eyes off Sandman, so I assume he's simply prioritizing the focus on the active threat.
Holy shit. Now you've established that Sandman can create sand blades now. You've given him his very own tentacle blade. Every time Sandman grabs Spider-Man, he can just easily form a blade to impale him, and the fight is over.
Sandman's reaction to Spider-Man was him acting on instinct. He noticed a threat, so he wanted to take it out as soon as possible. But because Sandman knows how to have fun with Spider-Man, he was able to find humor in how Spider-Man didn't account for the fact that he left the car without a driver, which puts him in the mood to toy with Spider-Man, as opposed to taking him out immediately. He's arrogant enough to think that he'll win the fight no matter what, so he can toy with Spider-Man as much as he pleases. He's made of sand and therefore impervious, so he has a basis for his arrogance.
Spider tricks don't work on the Sandman. But do sand tricks work on the Spider-Man?
Sandman, just turn your head into sand and the web will fall down.
I mean, he doesn't have to if he can just rip it off.
Also, move out of the way when you see Spider-Man about to drop something onto you. Go after him again.
Sandman doesn't expect Spider-Man to do anything, so he's not going to react with hard urgency for the same reasons I gave earlier. And you can call that dumb, but Sandman is kinda dumb in the show.
Say my name and I magically appear.
Fucking shit, they just pulled a TASM 2 where Peter stops to joke around during a car chase.
Okay, so this is not the same because he's trying to scare them into using the brakes. He's using their self-preservation as a tactic to stop the car, rather than going through the effort of having to pick them up one at a time.
Peter is across the street from Aunt May's house. He decided to swing with his clothes over his suit without even wearing a mask, and he decided to enter that same house where anybody could have seen this. Especially since Spider-Man swinging in your neighborhood would draw attention. Once again,
kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Speaking of drawing attention, I guess Rhino was just able to casually walk around New York without the police finding him.
They did find him, it just took a while, which I think is fair given how powerful Rhino is and how many forces they'd want prepared ahead of time.
I'll give you 15 seconds to write me a check for these damages or...
Hey Peter, it's time to go. Leave. Leave. What are you doing? Time is of the essence. Leave right now. Suit up. Peter, what are you doing? Leave.
He's surprised by the fact that his boss is being held hostage and is worried about the consequences of taking his eyes off him. I think it's reasonable for him to freeze up and think of what the immediate consequences are before he makes a decision.
Also, Peter is a fucking dick. Jameson just stuck his neck out to protect Peter, and in return, he decides to web him to the ceiling in a building that he knows he'll have to fight Rhino in for the time being. As a regular civilian inside the building, the safest thing to do would be to leave as soon as possible, But Jameson doesn't get to make that decision, because Peter forced him to stay in the building by webbing him to a ceiling. Not to mention that the building has a cracked floor, and for lack of a better metaphor, they're kind of on thin ice. So if anything happens that makes the building collapse, Jameson is not making it out alive. He doesn't even have a chance, because Peter didn't give him one.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, how the fuck does it take nearly 20 seconds for Rhino to rip a small piece of webbing off his face? Look at how long it takes for Rhino to rip off an even greater set of webbing that is meant to restrain his hands. It's nearly instantaneous.
His face isn't armored, his hands are. That's the difference here, which is why he'd hesitate more to rip the webs off his face. He has to be more careful.
Why the hell are Aunt May, Betty, and Robbie just standing there watching instead of evacuating? Is it because they don't want to leave Jameson behind? That could actually work if we actually saw them pushing back on Spider-Man's decision to web him to a ceiling, but they don't even try to tell Spider-Man to let him go.
Because Spider-Man is too busy dealing with Rhino, and they're not going to leave Jameson behind. And sure, it was silly that Spider-Man did that, but this is the situation they're in.
Why did Peter just stand there and watch and do nothing while cops were about to be attacked and were getting attacked and nearly killed by the Rhino?
Yeah, I can't defend that either. I was hoping to be able to defend more of this episode, but it is what it is. I'll include the brief edit I made in the original video to demonstrate what the issue is.
See him now?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why did you let Rhino throw that piece of rubble? Use your webs to try preventing it from hitting the building, you dickhead.
Why are they dead?
He didn't have the time because he had to dodge the object first and only thought of the bystanders right afterwards. Plus, depending on where he does web it, even if he had time, the object could just swing down and hit people anyway, so it makes sense to try swinging the people out of the way in that situation.
Why are you climbing up the same building Rhino is about to crash into? If you wanted to dodge him, just swing away to lead him somewhere deserted like you were planning to.
If anyone in the building gets affected by this attack, then it's better for him to be closer to the building rather than be further. He also didn't expect the damage to catch up to him that quickly while he's climbing that high.
We don't ever use the B word. Call him Mr. Lincoln.
How does this obviously dumb thug know? Well, because Norman used his name when Rhino was around.
Your Mr. Lincoln will be pleased.
Ixnay, we don't ever use the L word. Call him the big man.
Wait, why would Norman do that? Is it because Hammerhead never made the rule not to mention Mr. Lincoln clear to him? If so, why wouldn't Hammerhead tell him this initially? Whichever it is, someone's being an idiot here.
I assume Hammerhead did tell him, but Norman is only saying that as a reminder that he knows who they're working for, and was deliberately being reckless in his wording here, because it communicates that Norman still has some leverage, and practically speaking, it would take more than Rhino's accusation to actually bring Tombstone any legal consequences, so this wouldn't cause too many issues in their dealings.
Wait, Jameson is still stuck to the ceiling after the battle, so Peter didn't free him at all? This man literally stuck his neck out for you, and you just left him there. Aren't you a dickhead?
I mean, he probably saw the team helping him out and assumed that they had it handled. It's not that big of a deal that he leaves him there.
This episode right here is actually pretty good. I won't have much to complain about. There will be other criticisms made against the plot of this episode that I will address.
So I played this clip just to inform you on why some episode coverages might be shorter than others. If there's an episode that's being talked about for a short time, then that's the reason. This part is mostly praise, so I'll be skipping that, which is also what I've been doing for every time I gave praise to the show, as there's nothing to respond to.
But although this episode is good overall, it still has its problems. We see that there are 3 goblin goons present in the shot. John does a surprise attack and throws one at another, but that leaves one unaccounted for. Firstly, why didn't John go after the 3rd thug that was nearby? And why didn't the 3rd thug shoot at John while he was doing this? The guard just stood and did nothing for some reason.
Okay, it's not flawless.
But even worse, with these super dangerous circumstances in mind, Jameson requests Peter to show up and take photos, which I find to be an insane expectation.
Get me Parker. This is right up his freak show alley.
The entire building is being held hostage. How do you expect him to get the photos inside the building? I thought Jameson was willing to put himself on the line for Peter's safety, so why would he demand him to show up in this obviously unsafe location? He even tries to fire him when he believes Peter didn't show up.
But fire Parker! The kid never showed up!
You were gonna fire Peter for not entering a building that he couldn't possibly enter. What did you want him to do?
So this is established later, but Jameson does imply that he suspects Peter has a connection with Spider-Man, and this in itself isn't unreasonable to assume since Peter's the only one getting these photos.
Look, he rings my cell to tip me off when he's about to fight a baddie.
I knew it! I knew that headline hog was using me for free publicity!
Don't stop to talk, don't stop to talk.
Yoo-hoo! Excuse me, can I come in this way, or do I have to break my own window?
Shut up!
Now, okay, I can understand this decision if Peter was trying to bait the Green Goblin into coming after him, which gives him the chance to lure him outside the building so the fight doesn't take place near a bunch of civilians. I was willing to give this benefit of the doubt, but the first thing he does when shot at is he tries to lunge straight towards the Green Goblin, not even trying to bring the fight away from civilians. So this decision isn't even in line with his character.
Why would Green Goblin leave the building if his focus is on Tombstone? Attacking him inside the building would deter the Green Goblin from flying away, the same way he would if they were outside the building, and the glider can reasonably be assumed to be faster than web swinging. Also, Peter is trying to dodge Green Goblin when lunging into him, so getting closer is better since distance seems to be an advantage for Green Goblin.
Peekaboo! Spider-Man!
Shut up!
Well, we start with the show already pulling another amazing Spider-Man 2 by having Spider-Man stop to joke with the bad guys instead of pulling them out when he has the chance.
Like I said earlier, he's trying to scare them into stopping the car since that could be a quicker way of ending the chase. And to be clear, I'm not saying that the method you're trying to suggest here is an inherently bad method, but rather I'm trying to appeal to why this version of Spider-Man might be willing to use a different method, and why from his perspective it could work.
Otto is then trapped by the Green Goblin in order to cover up a loose end to Norman's organization. This would make sense given that Otto's concerns are troublesome to Norman's organization, so it would make sense for him to want to get Otto killed. But hold on a second. I just realized this. If Norman wanted to cover up a loose end, why is Otto still alive for the rest of the show? Why did Norman Osborn never go out of his way to kill him?
Because nobody would believe Otto at that point. He became a full-blown supervillain, and his word would be too difficult to trust, and it would paint a picture that he wasn't intending on an honest whistleblower for Oscorp, so his case would get dismissed more easily.
But back to Otto's origin, he then faces a near-death experience that fuses his arms to his skin. Spider-Man notices the potential danger and swings over there to go help him. Now, it lines up to me that Otto would want to get back at Norman since putting two and two together would lead him to the conclusion that Norman removed the safety key in order to have him killed. But what I find absolutely nonsensical is that Otto thinks Spider-Man tracked him down to destroy him, despite Spider-Man not having any idea of who Otto is. And even if it is possible that Spider-Man got some information from Sandman or Rhino, Spider-Man showing up to save Otto does not confirm this is true.
Otto is going to be biased to his own interpretation because he already had this concern earlier, which caused Norman to call him weak.
But what about the Spider-Man? He's battled Sandman and the Rhino. He could trace them back to Oscorp, to me.
Enough. You whine more than my son. I can't have weak men in my organization, Otto.
So if anything, he would stand by his original suspicion to appear more correct and intelligent, regardless of if that's true. In doing so, he appears stronger rather than weaker as Norman described him as.
And this is what gets Otto to suddenly turn into a villain, which I find to be rushed and very poorly developed. It just doesn't make sense for Spider-Man to be as involved in Otto's motivation as he is, because nothing from Otto's point of view would lead him to the conclusion that Spider-Man tried to destroy him.
Well, he's not exactly in the spirit of putting him in good faith when it's Spider-Man's interest to arrest him, whether Spider-Man himself knows that or not. He could potentially know it from Otto's perspective.
Also, Doc Ock is shown to have tentacle blades on all four of his arms. He can easily kill Spider-Man right now and not have to worry about him anymore.
Well, here we go again. Otto is trying to gloat in front of Spider-Man and torment him with the idea that he's more powerful than him, which is his way of being spiteful towards those who tried to undermine him.
Oh, you failed, Spider-Man, and your failure has given me new life.
If he's driven by spite and wants to draw it out, then he's justified in not killing him immediately. He wants to make it more personal.
Especially since Doc Ock would cause noisy tremors when traveling across the city and potentially leave claw marks as well, which provides Spider-Man with an easy trail to follow him with.
Why assume that Otto is always causing impact tremors? Why assume he's always leaving claw marks? In his apartment, he moves around with his arms without causing noisy tremors. This doesn't always happen.
Please, do not confuse this.
I cannot believe I once lived in this anemic hovel.
With that.
Also, why the fuck is Doc Ock holding Spider-Man by only one of his arms? Now you've allowed him to use his other arm to use his web shooters,
which Otto can either block or rip off with ease, while having numerous other arms to protect him.
Doc Ock then runs out of power, then walks across the city all the way to his apartment without being caught or followed by the police who would be capable of stopping Doc Ock. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah, it does, and it was wrong there too. First of all, Otto is not a wanted fugitive by this point, and even if he was, he can leap from building to building, which is something the cops can't do. Second of all, cops can take 10 minutes to even arrive at the scene. Otto's apartment could have been 5 minutes away.
Doc Ock even breaks open the wall to his apartment and remains unnoticed by the police.
So, does every wall all of a sudden just get watched by the police? And when they get reports of that, Otto would be gone by the time they got there.
And he still isn't caught afterwards when we see him jumping across buildings.
Otto could have hidden them in his coat when making the longer travels, and eventually revealed them when he was closer to the Tricorp building. While it's not shown in this episode, a later episode does show that he can do that. I don't think we need to see him do that right now to know it's possible, but it is possible in the show.
Couldn't Doc Ock at least try to hide his arms under his coat? Even Spider-Man 2 Doc Ock was smart enough to at least try disguising himself when moving from place to place.
Maybe he did do that until he got closer to the building. Why assume otherwise?
But that's not even the sharpest tentacle blade in this fight. The sharpest tentacle blade in this fight is the fact that Spider-Man has the Megalopack this whole fight, and instead of just smashing it so Doc Ock can never retrieve it and obtain a longer power source, he just decides to play keep away, even though that would be completely pointless if he just smashed it to pieces.
This is a valuable piece of technology that is presumed to be rare for the company that owns it. Peter likely just wanted to preserve the technology instead of just destroying it.
Web him, 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 web him.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Where was Spider-Man's heads up for that attack? I thought he had spider sense.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Oh, look, Doc Ock has Spider-Man grabbed. Good time to grab onto him with the other arms and stab him. Nope, he just lets him go after whacking him with a bunch of objects.
After Doc Ock tries using the blades on him, he then states that he wants Spider-Man to suffer.
You will suffer for this indignity, Spider-Man!
I imagine he originally wanted him out of the picture, since he already got the satisfaction of toying with him earlier, but because Spider-Man pissed him off again by outsmarting him, that took a hit on Otto's ego. It escalated the situation, and Otto wanted to draw out Spider-Man's suffering. One of the examples of this is him weaponizing how Spider-Man can't bear to see anyone get hurt, and he's smiling while remarking on this.
I should have seen it sooner, Spider-Man. You're weak. You can't bear to see anyone hurt. And your meager thought process is so transparent. And think of all the damage I can do in 1 hour. Starting with the girl.
Oh my fucking god, Doc Ock had Spider-Man dead to rights and could have easily just stabbed him right there, but instead decided to change his power source while Spider-Man was close by and easily capable of recovering given his established power set.
But eventually, there's a point where someone gets knocked out. Spider-Man is already getting fatigued from the fight, and Otto locks in and lands so many blows to the point where Spider-Man is seemingly knocked out. His mistake was underestimating Spider-Man's resilience in spite of how much damage he takes.
What I will say is admittedly contrived is that at the same time Peter is trying to get to Harry in order to talk to him, Green Goblin is arriving at his home at the exact same time. Not just that, but since Spider-Man just had a fight with Green Goblin and loses Green Goblin because of how much faster he is on his glider rather than Spider-Man's ability to swing, I find it very odd that Spider-Man somehow arrived in front of Osborn's home right before Green Goblin got there. Don't you think that if Green Goblin travels way faster to the point Spider-Man lost him, he should make it home far before Spider-Man even shows up there? This is quite bizarre to me, and this is what prompts Spider-Man's suspicion that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin, and that's what gets Norman to use Harry as a cover-up in order to go into hiding.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why not cover up the door that Tombstone needs to enter in order to access the controls to break out Hammerhead?
Green Goblin isn't taking the fight that seriously, and it's not even likely for Tombstone to make it here with how many obstacles Green Goblin is throwing at them.
And since Spider-Man is constantly going to be a threat to him, and Green Goblin saw Tombstone attempting to break out Hammerhead, why didn't he drop the avalanche of pumpkin bombs that he had as a backup plan? An escape under that condition would be impossible. Tombstone and Hammerhead would be killed, and Spider-Man would be too distracted to actually stop the Green Goblin or save both of them. The setup for Green Goblin's plan works, but the prime issue is in how he executes it.
From Green Goblin's perspective, he can torment Hammerhead and Tombstone later. He wants to focus on Spider-Man right now, which is why he's okay with the two of them leaving. Seeing that they were more successful than he expected, he sees this as an opportunity to draw out the game he's playing with them.
We see what the Gobweb inhibitor is capable of. It is capable of instantly trapping its target and rendering their arms useless. Green Goblin had so many opportunities to use this on Spider-Man and Tombstone, like when he tosses the pumpkin razors, or when he stuns Spider-Man, or when Spider-Man breaks out of it so Spider-Man can instantly be restrained once more. This tentacle blade heavily damages the stakes of this entire battle.
So, you seem to be under the impression that Green Goblin has intent to kill, but this is really a case of him toying with his enemies for his own fun. That's where his obsessions lie, and while that comes with risks, that's kind of what toying with people entails. You test out their limits and see how well they perform.
We open up with establishment that ESU will be containing the symbiote on John Jameson's ship, which is their first sign of alien life. Well, that's a pretty big deal. Not sure why NASA isn't containing this in a super locked up and secure facility, given that this is alien life they're dealing with and this is something they want well protected.
Sure, I can give him that. If there were at least armed guards, this would have been better.
And it's an especially terrible idea to have this in the ESU lab, given how quickly that lab goes through funding. It had an incident involving Electro and the Lizard, which led to plenty of destruction throughout the lab. And you're telling me that they thought it was a good idea to not only have this symbiote contained in this very lab, but they fucking announced that it'll be kept here for the world to see?
They didn't announce it. The reporters did because they were visibly transporting it. And while the security should be tighter, the reason they're working with Kurt on this is because he's the best biogeneticist, which makes the potential gain outweigh the potential risks.
So Black Cat tries to steal the symbiote from its container. Before doing so, she sprays the area to check for lasers. Hold up a second. Shouldn't she check before going this low in the lab? What if there were lasers capable of detecting her from a higher level? Why assume there would be none of these types of motion sensors at higher levels, especially in a world with superhumans capable of climbing on walls or flying?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, the skylight shouldn't even be able to be entered without setting off any alarms if alien life is being contained here.
Okay, it's not flawless.
And once you enter the building, the symbiote is only being contained by a glass container and not kept behind secure walls. There aren't even any armed security or cameras keeping an eye on what's happening. It's actually insane how poor the security measures are.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Okay, so Spider-Man saw Black Cat open the container for the symbiote. So I think it's fair to expect him to act very urgently, since he doesn't know how dangerous this life form is if it is left unattended and unrestrained. So what the hell is he doing stopping to talk with Black Cat close up when he can just web her as soon as possible?
Because he's trying to de-escalate and let her know he doesn't want to fight.
Easy, cat lady. I don't want to fight.
He gets her hands webbed after a long period of time talking to her, but doesn't continuously apply more webbing to make sure she can't move.
Okay, it's not flawless.
And he doesn't even continue to web her after he gets kicked away. And he's still just casually conversing with no sense of...
Alright, I'm gonna move on from this. Yes, he's kinda stupid, and yes, this is valid to bring up. Moving on.
But even worse, Peter turned in these photos to the Bugle, and his name is still credited in the papers. Why would Jameson credit Peter in the papers after protecting his name from the Rhino? Does he not realize that continuing to credit Peter Parker would put a target on Peter's back like it did in an earlier episode?
So this is a point he's gonna bring up again and again, so I'm just gonna address it here. The reason for this is so Jameson or Bugle employees don't become the target. It's so that Peter would become the target since he has means of defending himself.
So let's start with Eddie Brock's reaction to the latest Bugle report.
I actually thought Spidey was a hero, and I actually thought Pete was a human being, and he was here last night taking pictures, and couldn't even be bothered to call the police. Bro had his second chance.
First off, how the fuck does Eddie know that Peter didn't call the police? The police literally showed up that night as we heard sirens alongside the alarm, which I can only assume is what got the police's attention in the first place.
Okay, so this will be a multi-part response, so expect me to build off this as we approach the other episodes. Now, for the longest time, I never caught on to this, but it's actually really interesting to think about now. Eddie is not saying this earnestly. He's deliberately putting Peter in bad faith right here. Now, some may be wondering why, because Eddie's meant to be seen as an upstanding guy willing to help others, and is fairly forgiving of Peter's past faults, which is what many of the criticisms towards his turn rely on. But I think this is indicative of a larger issue. Eddie was always kind of insane, as in he's unstable, which is likely because of the trauma of losing his parents and his envy for Peter.
Our parents may have died together, but you had your precious aunt and uncle. We had no one. We've always been alone.
Now, he is being influenced by the symbiote to say this, but there's some subtext to work with here. Eddie may have been kind and loyal to Peter over the years, but his acts of good are done selfishly. He wants to get some kind of reward for his good deeds, rather than fully believing in them. And because of that, he's constantly looking to one-up Peter in any way he can to prop himself up, even in the most subtle of ways.
But I'm guessing you're missing me at Midtown High, huh? Don't want to keep Flash Thompson off your back? Stole your shoes again, huh? Said you wore clean underwear. Lucky I didn't say socks. What does this gig pay? Pete, you're a high school kid with zero experience. You're not getting paid.
Now, this all seems relatively harmless, but that's why I mentioned the subtlety of it. There's more to pick up on as we go along, where Eddie's mask begins to slip little by little.
What if we work from the other end? Create a human DNA filter that knocks out the lizard code, like the noise filter on a cell phone.
Yeah, nice try, bro. But,
No, wait! That could work.
Right here, Eddie is still trying to talk down to Peter and keep him in his place. He probably doesn't want Peter to be the one who comes up with the solution, and when Peter ends up doing so, Eddie is mildly disappointed that he wasn't the one who thought of the solution and therefore couldn't take credit for it. His immediate, poorly thought out dismissal is a subtle sign of what I'm talking about, and that's likely why he tries going above and beyond to be helpful with the lizard. He wants to appear more useful than Peter, and what I think is a stronger indicator is Eddie's reaction to finding out Peter took the photos.
Bro, you ditched the antidote effort to win a contest.
This is slightly disingenuous here because Peter wasn't just trying to win a contest, he was trying to support himself and his aunt. The others present in the scene, while still willing to hold Peter accountable, at least understood this and didn't grill Peter as hard as Eddie did. Kurt even points this out to Eddie to let him know to cool off.
Eddie, it's all right. Besides, I'm not exactly in a position to throw stones.
That's another thing too. While it's understandable why Kurt did what he did and it wasn't out of malice, Eddie is willing to cut him some slack, but not Peter, who is still a kid trying to learn and improve. It goes to show that Eddie's anger is targeted, unreasonable, and performative. Kurt's wife shows this level of understanding.
Peter, you're young, and faced with difficult choices, young people sometimes make mistakes.
Thanks for understanding.
I understand you, but I can't trust you. You're fired.
You'll also notice that Gwen feels bad for Peter, while Eddie just looks angry all the time. In fact, Eddie looks the angriest in the scene when it's not even his place to be the most angry. And Eddie is the only one who dangles this over Peter's face, even while he's learned his lesson.
Just trying to do too much at once.
You mean like selling pictures to the Bugle instead of helping your friends? Don't go all emo on me, bro. I'll get over it. Just back off for a while.
He says that last part to appear reasonable and fair, but deep down he's still trying to get dirt on Peter as a way to stay on top. He wants to one-up him as much as possible, and while you could argue that of course Eddie is gonna hold this against Peter after it recently happened, multiple episodes pass and Eddie still brings this up out of nowhere.
No visitors, no reporters, and for sure, no photographers she already knows she can't trust.
He didn't have to say this, there was no reason for him to bring this up. He just did it to put down Peter so Eddie can feel superior to him. So this brings us to the point of criticism that I'm responding to here. Eddie is jumping to conclusions to fit a biased interpretation that he wants to uphold, because it benefits the way Eddie is perceived and compensates for his envy towards Peter. And Gwen is able to notice that Eddie is jumping to conclusions, but she gets cut off before she can make a point.
I actually thought Spidey was a hero, and I actually thought Pete was a human being, and he was here last night taking pictures, and couldn't even be bothered to call the police.
But
don't bother, Gwen. Bro had his second chance. I'm done.
Goodbye, sir.
Eddie simply didn't care to get his facts straight. He saw this as enough of an excuse to cast out Peter and blame him for the troubles. Gwen probably was about to make points for why Peter may have done what he did or whether or not they could trust the narrative that Spider-Man took the symbiote, but Eddie didn't want to hear it. Now, this point will connect to other moments regarding Eddie's character, but we're not quite there yet, so we'll give it some time. Consider this part one of my defense for Eddie's writing.
He then arrives at home and changes right outside his home where anyone on the streets could see him.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
We're then shown that Spider-Man is being framed for bank robberies by the Chameleon, and it seems to be convincing enough that the public already believes this. Okay, well let's take a look at how a heist is actually conducted to see if this is within reason. The first red flag is that the web shooters are put outside of the costume despite the fact that they're always placed under the costume when looking at the real Spider-Man. But okay, maybe Spider-Man felt like exposing the location of these devices for whatever reason. Whatever. The second red flag is that these webs have metal points on each of their ends in order to restrain people. That's not even close to how his webbing works. The idea is that they're so strong that he just needs to wrap them with the webbing, and it doesn't need any anchors on the ends of either of them to stick the webbing to the wall.
Okay, but it's difficult to have a direct reference for how strong Spider-Man's webs are, since the footage of him is limited and his webs dissolve after a while. So from the public's perspective, this could be a web shooter upgrade. If the webs are shown to act differently, then why assume that this means he's being being impersonated, as opposed to assuming that he may have upgraded his tech.
The third red flag is that the security guards get wrapped by webbing that has balls on the ends of each side. Also, people on the other side of the glass can see and report the obvious suction cups on his feet and fingertips.
Okay, what if Spider-Man does use advanced suction cups? Do they know it has to be superpowers? Even if they were under the impression that it was, then this could simply indicate that Spider-Man was dishonest about having powers in the first place, and is secretly using tech to perform as well as he does. There's a reason Captain Stacy doesn't buy it while the others do.
Also, Chameleon has plot armor. This guard had a gun the whole time and watched fake Spider-Man web the wall and trap this one guard, then point his web shooter at 2 other guards seconds later. That should be more than enough time to just pull out his gun and tell him to freeze or shoot him once he doesn't comply.
What if he misses? What if he hits the other guard? I think it's reasonable that someone would hesitate to risk the life of their coworker.
Since we saw the 2 guards attempt to reach for their guns before fake Spider-Man aimed his web shooter, we know for a fact that they are capable of pulling guns while fake Spider-Man was focused on one other guard.
Same counter as before, they want to avoid needless casualties.
And what's even worse is that fake Spider-Man just leaves and jumps to the wall instead of taking down the 2 other guards.
They've already surrendered and they're not going to shoot at him while there's civilians in the background.
Also, disguising yourself as Norman Osborn is just incredibly dumb. Norman would be one of the most well-known billionaires on this cruise, so if 2 of them are spotted in the same area, his plan falls apart immediately. Could he not have just pretended to be some random cop or some random waiter like Beck was?
The Chameleon could have spied on his house to see what his plans were. If Norman wasn't heading out to the ship, then this would tell him that he could safely impersonate him.
What did you say? What did you say?
I can't be the only one who heard that.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man then chases after Chameleon, and the one thing that damages this chase is that Spider-Man just needed to pull himself towards the webs and he would have reached Chameleon much earlier. In fact, having 2 more available arms means he could use one of them to web the boat to ensure his connection to it, and the other to yank himself towards the boat.
That depends though. Is this the first time Peter has ever traversed using the water? Judging by the dialogue, it sounds like that.
New onesie. I can feel it balancing me. Compensating for the boat, the water, everything.
So even being able to stay afloat would take getting used to, which is why he doesn't immediately web his way towards the boat.
But then, Chameleon just manages to break free and impersonate a cop, then walk away scot-free? Fucking how? We saw him in handcuffs when put into the police truck and cops were all over the place. There's absolutely no way Chameleon broke out of the handcuffs, there's no way he gagged and tied up the cop with nobody noticing, and the amount of time it would have taken to take the cop's clothes, put them on, then mask himself to replicate his face would have been too long for him to do in all this amount of time we're shown it took.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, where would he have even gotten the mask from? His briefcases needed to contain these materials, and that would have been confiscated by this point. Where did he even get the ties to trap the cop? Like, this is just impossible in so many different ways. It's actually insane.
Okay, it's not flawless.
This next episode opens up with Electro being let go because the psychiatrist notices Max making progress. She also notes that he needs to continue therapy.
You need to continue therapy, but I just know you'll do great out there.
Wait, so that's it? So before having properly cured Max, they just decided to let him go, even knowing that he still needs to go to therapy and has some problems to work out. They didn't even have the proper restraints to ensure that Max can't use his powers again. I guess he just managed to trick a top psychiatrist that he doesn't want to kill Spider-Man anymore.
But we know that Max is in contact with Otto, who likely guided him throughout to ensure that he tricks the people trying to help him. Otto is very intelligent, so it's not impossible for him to have guided Max to do this.
The guards are also very incompetent throughout this escape. You're telling me nobody thought to obtain tranquilizing gas to use it on the Rhino or any other escapees, especially considering that was used to restrain Rhino in his prison cell?
Do not approach walls or door, or tranquilizing gas will be released to immobilize. O'Hearn, Alexander.
No.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, are there seriously no police helicopters being sent? Not even police boats? Nobody followed these guys upon their escape?
Maybe they did. If that happened, Elektra would just shoot them down easily. I don't even think they'd want to approach them yet until they have a plan, considering how dangerous they are to even follow.
Also, where did Hammerhead get the arms, Shocker's suit, and Vulture's wings? Since Electro only in this scene broke out of his restraints, it seems to me that this is the first time he actually used his powers, so we can't assume it was him who got him. So how did Hammerhead manage this? How would they even know where it was kept? It for sure wasn't in the building since Hammerhead had them before the breakout, so what allowed him to obtain these?
How do we know that Hammerhead had them before the breakout? He could have gone to the prison while Electro was about to cut the power and sent goons to steal their gear that way.
Then we see Peter meeting up with Eddie Brock. Eddie goes off on Peter because he thinks Peter took photos without calling the cops.
You take pictures of Spidey stealing the alien life form instead of calling the cops, and you wonder if I'm ticked.
And I've already discussed the issues with that earlier, so it's made even worse when Eddie just goes off on Peter and jumps to assume that he doesn't care about anything.
But like I said earlier, Eddie was looking to put Peter in bad faith, so he'd remain needlessly dismissive and spiteful, even if Spider-Man was proven innocent.
And Peter could easily bring up the fact that the cops showed up either because he sounded the alarm, or because he called them after it happened.
Eddie interrupted him and Peter couldn't get a word in. Peter could try to argue with him more, but he has reached a point where he's willing to let him go if he won't give him a chance.
Well, who needs him? I've got the cool new suit.
Then we see SWAT teams arrive with the cops to go after the Rhino. Oh, so they do eventually spot the villains. Let's see what their plan is. Oh, none of them have any tranquilizing gases on them to use on the Rhino, despite this being a method of restraint at the prison.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man gets grabbed by Doc Ock without his spider sense giving him any kind of warning.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Doc Ock also isn't stabbing Spider-Man with the tentacle blade.
Because he wants to make him suffer.
You will suffer for this indignity, Spider-Man!
Rhino is running towards Spider-Man, and Spider-Man pushes him into the wall of a building that could very easily have people inside.
There's really no stopping Rhino, so I don't know what he could have done here besides dodging him.
It also seems that these villains have intentions of killing, as Vulture was only an inch away from stabbing right through Spider-Man, which would have killed him if he was successful.
No, that just means he's willing to slash Spider-Man. That wouldn't just kill him because he's a very enhanced superhuman.
Spider-Man decides to bail knowing he can't beat them and hides in the tunnel. Then he just gives up, I guess? But like, Rhino and Vulture can't be in this tunnel. This is already a major advantage. Electro was told to go back up because of how dangerous it is for him to be down there. Sandman even requests to leave since he is in the water, which isn't safe for him. Spider-Man only has to deal with Doc Ock, Shocker, and Sandman. Shocker would be easier to beat since him being in an enclosed space risks him hitting one of their own. Doc Ock can easily be surprise attacked, and Sandman is actively becoming weaker due to being in the water. If Spider-Man followed them until Electro left, then went on to attack them, then he has a significantly higher chance of winning. But he just lets them go so they can hurt more people later.
So this is something that I'm stumped on right now. This is an opportunity to take on the villains, but given how narrow this tunnel is, there is a good risk that any of the villains could get killed. Shocker could bring down the structure and kill them all, or mistakenly hit Otto, which could kill him. But the thing is, that doesn't mean Peter has to leave. So what happened exactly? Did he just follow them and allow them to regroup? Because that would kind of break his rule about never looking the other way, especially when he has an opportunity to take on a small amount compared to later, when they regroup and he has to take all of them on. And if he was to plan an attack, he could just target Shocker first and try taking off his gauntlets, which I guess would be better than simply letting them go and regroup.
This obsession with Spider-Man is a distraction. It's Osborn who's truly earned my wrath.
Nice argument, but who was it that prevented you from going after Osborn? Oh, right, it was Spider-Man.
He doesn't have to go after Spider-Man if he has a whole team that made him go running.
The Sinister Six then agree on a plan to bait Spider-Man. I guess Vulture just snuck up on Spider-Man without his spider sense going off.
So, here's something worth considering. While the symbiote is taking over Peter's body, we never actually see it use spider sense. And I think the reason for this is because spider sense feeds information to the person, but Peter is unconscious. The symbiote is merely using its own senses to gather information in the fight, but it can't receive spider sense warnings because it's a tingling in Peter's brain. The symbiote isn't controlling his mind, it's controlling his body. So that's perhaps why his senses aren't going off, but I suppose it wouldn't hurt to have a line or something to help indicate this.
Also, despite there being plenty of buildings around, Spider-Man just allowed himself to fall.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Then we cut back to Eddie Brock, who asked MJ on a date because he thought she was with Peter. Now his plan, and I shit you not, is to try to convince MJ that Peter is an awful person, and his method of doing so is to drive recklessly on the road and endanger himself and MJ. He risks so many car accidents and ignores the fact that MJ is quite obviously terrified while Eddie is driving.
This goes back to what I said earlier, about how Eddie is kind of unstable. This is indicating how Eddie's mask is slipping. He's angry because his job is on the line, and Peter doesn't seem to acknowledge this, alongside the fact that he has a personal bias against Peter that I discussed earlier.
And remember everyone, Eddie is the type of person to go out of his way to help people, even to the point of risking his own life in service of helping people.
Like I said, this was done just to make himself look good. The difference between Peter and Eddie is that Peter is motivated by principle, not personal gain. Eddie is looking to benefit himself. That's why when Peter goes through hardships, he doesn't break and become crazy. When Eddie goes through hardships, he does break and looks for ways to blame others.
Why is only Electro shooting at Spider-Man but not Shocker, who lives right next to Electro?
Shocker is more cautious when planning his shots. Electro is a more impulsive character.
Also, if Sandman was able to get the jump on Spider-Man, why not grab him immediately, then use one of his sand blades to stab him while he is grabbed in place?
Because he's having fun during the fight. You can see him smiling when he's running towards Spider-Man.
How did Rhino know that Peter was right under that area of the ceiling? Does he just have X-ray vision now?
He probably heard Spider-Man land there.
Spider-Man lands on Vulture and he can just shut down his wings by ripping this thing off his head? Maybe Vulture should have that covered up with a helmet or something. Why leave this out and exposed? And why not shake around to get Spider-Man off of him?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Otto, what kind of hold is this? Not only did he allow Spider-Man's arms and legs to remain free, but he brought Spider-Man closer to him, giving him the chance to just punch or kick him, which Spider-Man just doesn't do for some odd reason.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Just stab him with your tentacle blades and end it off right there.
He wants to honor Rhino's wishes of an impalement.
Now, I do believe we promised Rhino an impalement.
Especially when knowing he can just web your eyes with his suit, which he, once again, doesn't do.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Doc Ock also grabs hold of him again, but doesn't grab him with the rest of his arms to stab him.
Again, he wants Spider-Man to suffer.
And MJ showed up to tell him about what happened to May. Did she not try Peter's cell phone? Did she not tell her aunt to try Peter's cell phone? How is it that Peter just hasn't found out about what happened to May all this time?
Maybe she did. Peter didn't check his phone and he just woke up, so we don't know.
This next episode opens up with Peter using his powers and then landing in an area as Peter Parker where anybody could have seen him, already defeating the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
God damn it, Peter swung around to Spider-Man then landed as Peter Parker in broad daylight once again. Why do you keep doing this?
Okay, it's not flawless.
If Peter is being convinced that the symbiote is leaving a negative impact because it influences him to care less about his friends, then why does the symbiote not only just double down, but jump to saying that he shouldn't even care about Aunt May, despite all of Peter's recent behavior being in service of helping Aunt May?
The point the symbiote is making is about choice. It wants Peter to choose the symbiote over his loved ones because they would never approve of the self-serving person that the symbiote wants him to become. So it has to cut all of Peter's positive influences to do so.
Then we see what's happening inside of Peter's mind. I guess this is supposed to indicate that the symbiote is showing Peter imagery and remarking on it to try making its case to Peter. Well then I wonder why the symbiote would re-show his entire origin story, which would get him to remember why he became Spider-Man in the first place. That would motivate him to call off the deal with Tombstone. I get that the symbiote wants to convince him not to blame himself and that the world takes those we love away naturally in order to undo what his origin story taught him.
Why blame yourself? We didn't hurt Uncle Ben. The world took him away from us. The world takes everything we love.
But I feel like showing everything in this manner, showing every single minute detail, would only remind Peter that Ben would still be alive if he stopped the robber. And if the symbiote wanted to make a case that people will be lost no matter what, this is not the way to go about it. Showing that he had agency in that situation is counterproductive to the symbiote's goals. It honestly would be interesting if the symbiote tried to cut that context while showing Peter his origin, and have Peter himself bring it up to make his case against the symbiote.
If the symbiote was to withhold context, then Peter would bring it up no matter what, and it could come across as dishonest if the symbiote is selective in what it shows Peter. I think showing everything in detail that happened, then making the point anyway, communicates confidence in the symbiote's ideology. If it wasn't this event that killed Uncle Ben, then it would have been another because the world is simply unfair. And because that makes it easier for Peter to not take accountability, then it would also make it easier to transform him into a more self-serving Spider-Man. That's what the symbiote wants from him.
Despite knowing how dangerous the symbiote is, he tries to freeze it and assumes that it will kill it without checking to make sure it does.
Yeah, I've got nothing at all. This always bugged me about the show.
You don't even know how long it will take to kill it. What if Eddie heightens the temperature? Did you try burning it? Dude, why didn't you tell Connors and the rest about why this symbiote is so dangerous and why they need to destroy it? If they just arrive and see the alien lifeform is returned, but dead with no explanation, they're gonna be quite pissed off.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Eddie then just decides to open the container holding the symbiote. What the fuck? The unspoken implication of containing this alien life form is that they don't know how dangerous this could be. So why the fuck would Eddie open the container and risk that it either escapes and is lost again, or endangers Eddie or anybody else it may reach?
Yep, can't defend that either, especially since the symbiote being alive means that Eddie's job is secured again.
He learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, which means that Peter had a reason to ditch the antidote's efforts since he was stopping the lizard as Spider-Man. This also means that he did try to stop Black Cat from stealing the life form. And remember, this is the point in the series after learning Spider-Man was framed for numerous crimes. Maybe this could work if his contention is Peter keeping the symbiote and never turning it back in, but he's literally about to do this exact same thing as opposed to keeping his job at ESU?
Again, Eddie is acting in bad faith on purpose, and if he sees Peter's memories, he'd realize that Tombstone would pay him if he fought crime, so he doesn't need the lab job anymore. He could just make money from Tombstone, which I think adds on to what's interesting about Peter versus Eddie. Like I said, Peter acts on principle, Eddie acts on gain. If it was Eddie Brock who was bitten by the spider, he 100% would have accepted the deal with Tombstone from the beginning. And just to add on to how much of a bad faith asshat Eddie is, he starts acting this way towards the Connors family.
I'll clear out my stuff tonight. That way the Connors won't get the satisfaction of seeing me beaten.
This isn't something Eddie would say to their face because he wanted a chance at keeping his job as well as maintaining a good reputation, but it does indicate what he says about them behind their backs. He operates in bad faith all the time when things go sideways for him and tries to blame everyone else.
Is this dude really trying to use ball spikes as his weapon of choice? I'm sorry, that's just silly.
Well, it's not, because this would still kill Spider-Man if too many of these hit him. Also, come to think of it, a downside of bullets is that you can kill people in the background that you didn't mean to kill because of any shots that miss. So weapons like this actually mitigate that risk.
Also, you're telling me nobody there tried to shoot at Spider-Man either?
They were shocked by his sudden appearance.
Why didn't this thug move out of the way when the crates were falling?
Because he was shocked at first, so he didn't react quickly enough.
Dude, are you seriously just trying to hit Spider-Man with your gun instead of just shooting at him?
Spider-Man is too close, so that wouldn't work. It's not like he closed the distance or anything.
What were these two doing this whole time? Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
I imagine they were being cautious because they wanted to make sure their surprise attack was absolutely perfect and precise.
Spider-Man, just dodge that crate. Why are you just standing there?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Then, Spider-Man swing kicks this thug falling headfirst from a high height right into another thug. Yeah, that guy is dead.
This show is relying on exaggerated physics for their action scenes, so you need to prove that this would actually kill a regular human in the show.
I really should start locking those windows.
Yeah, you would think so, after the Green Goblin literally broke into here.
I mean, locking the windows would not have stopped that.
He webs him to stall him so he has enough time to web up this message, I guess. How did he know that Spider-Man would swing in this exact area to trap him? Was he just lucky?
I don't think he needed Spider-Man to end up there for his message to mean something. He also wrote "Guess Who" on the note to Aunt May. I guess you could argue that maybe Peter should have noticed the web while swinging that direction.
Also, Venom trying to startle Aunt May knowing her heart condition is insane to me.
Eddie, why are you? Because I still remember what a great lady she is. Figured it was worth stomaching you for her sake.
Again, Eddie is only saying this to prop himself up. He specifically waited for Peter to show up just so we could talk down to him. He was never a good guy, and would be easier to convince under the symbiote to try killing May or Gwen just to get to Peter.
And the idea that Venom gives up because Spider-Man won't let him reach Aunt May is insane to me.
You're not going near her!
Fine.
Venom can just instantly web up Spider-Man like he did earlier, and there is quite literally nothing Spider-Man would be able to do.
Venom is still toying with Spider-Man. It doesn't matter which order he does this in. As long as he's still playing on Peter's fears and beating him up while doing it, then there's really no issue with this plan.
We know who you love the most, bro.
Oh, and Eddie revealing his identity to Peter like that is actually kind of stupid, because if Peter warns everybody he loves that Eddie Brock is Venom and is after them, then Eddie Brock's identity would be known and Eddie risks losing all of his connections.
Eddie doesn't care, and Peter doesn't have evidence anyway.
Okay, so Venom claws parts of Spider-Man's suit. Oh, and he reveals to him that he can just form mouths with sharp teeth anywhere on his body at will, which means anytime he grabs Peter in place is an opportunity to not only dig his claws into Peter to weaken him, but also an opportunity for him to form teeth on his hands to serve as blades to stab Peter with.
He could do that, but that's not how he prefers to make Peter suffer. If anything, he gets enjoyment from the fact that Peter has a fighting chance but is failing anyway.
The symbiote's proven its point. I'm nothing without it. Take me back.
Nice plan, Peter, but there's just one problem. The symbiote feeds off negative emotions. Eddie's hatred for Peter far outweighs whatever Peter is feeling right now. All Peter indicates is that he's defeated, not even anger or hatred, just that he wants the symbiote back, when this could easily be used as a trap for Peter to web up the symbiote and prevent it from bonding with anyone.
The symbiote isn't thinking that far ahead. It's only thinking of the fact that Peter was its first love and it wants to bond back with him if there's a chance to.
So the symbiote falling for this is dumb, but it's also dumb of a plan for Peter, not only because he could have used his webs or the cloth to contain the symbiote instead of letting it crawl onto him, but the only way to remove it against his will is to rely on vibrations. And is there anything within this area that resembles bells or anything else that could be relied on as vibrations?
Nope.
And given that the symbiote has grown in power from its time with Eddie, then who's to say that Peter could ever escape at this time?
If the emotions are all wrong and it figures out that Peter never wanted it back, then it's not going to stay there. It would just go back to Brock, which Peter knew would happen.
Oh, and remember what I said about how stupid it was for him to assume the symbiote couldn't survive being frozen without running any tests or trials to ensure that he's successful in destroying the symbiote? Well, he does it again by throwing it in cement and assuming that it will never escape. They have done it once again.
Okay, so this one's a bit different. I think it's better that he puts the symbiote under concrete because it makes it so no one can access it unless they bulldoze the pavement. But these jobs usually get announced and it'd be within Peter's character to keep that in mind for the time being so that he can watch over any construction jobs and come prepared to cause loud vibrations if someone were to get infected, or simply alert them of this possibility so they come prepared with the tools to contain it.
We know who you love the most.
So this just came out of nowhere. I mean, sure, it makes sense for Eddie to know this, but throughout this series, he has always shown the least affection towards Gwen. Like, we're led to believe that he's confident enough to try asking out a popular girl at his school, asking out Betty Brant from the Bugle, go on a brief date with MJ, and go on a brief date with Liz, but somehow he didn't have any confidence or let alone intentions of pursuing a relationship with Gwen at any point.
I mean, yeah, this does come out of nowhere, but that's kind of the point of the twist. I assume that Peter simply saw it as a greater risk to try pursuing Gwen than anybody else, which is probably what they're relying on as a hint for this. Subconsciously, he probably thought he wasn't good enough or needed to meet a higher standard but couldn't. Okay, so that covers Season 1. I'm correct, you're wrong. Let's move to Season 2.
Still, looks like Eddie grabbed everything but his roommate and bailed. So, bro, where are you?
Wait, hold on a second. You're telling me that after the battle with Venom, he just left his bro there and called it a day? He made no attempt to talk to him about what happened afterwards. He didn't even try to apprehend him to make sure he doesn't do anything to try hurting his loved ones moving forward.
Eddie probably just left afterwards. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to pretend to be knocked out just so he can do this.
He had to have a nightmare way later in order for him to realize that he should probably keep an eye on Eddie?
He probably did check periodically, but this was soon after Eddie eventually grabbed everything.
1, talk to Gwen. 2, find Eddie.
Are you... You fucking made it worse somehow. Peter is prioritizing talking to Gwen over finding Eddie, despite his missing bro being a far more pressing matter.
He can't find Eddie while he's at school, that's what he means.
Mysterio is doing pretty well so far. However, Mysterio has this ability to immediately incapacitate his opponents, presumably by some invisible gas that he releases. He also seems hell-bent on killing Spider-Man as soon as he has the chance, judging by how his first instinct after having him dead to rights was to pull out a sword and attempt to stab him.
Or this could mean that Mysterio wants Spider-Man's death to be dramatic and theatrical, rather than an immediate kill. But since Spider-Man puts up more of a fight than he expected, he runs with that for the sake of making the battle more exciting. This is the one character I can use this defense for, because he literally has a taste for theatrics in canon.
But instead of finishing off Spider-Man while he remains an active threat, he decided to leave him unattended and focus on trying to steal the tech from the truck, even though before doing that, he could have just continued to use his gas and zap Spider-Man.
Mysterio isn't shown to be taking this fight or Spider-Man himself seriously. He uses his illusions to toy with him and create an exciting performance. He also doesn't view Spider-Man as a threat that he has to kill straight away. He views him as an addition to the show.
Don't mind me, just had to get in out of the cold.
Oh great, he decided now was a good time to stop for a chat when he literally just saw a massive explosion take place.
Peter's not going to attack him immediately because Mysterio could easily set a trap. He's a master illusionist and possibly a wizard from his perspective. Keeping him talking to possibly throw him off or learn of his plan makes more sense for him to do.
Mysterio then releases an entire horde of bats and wait a minute. This entire horde of bats can cut through Spider-Man's suit, meaning that all these bats have to do do is surround every part of Peter's body and just cut him everywhere, which makes it so much easier for Mysterio to kill him.
He doesn't want to do that, and that would make for an anticlimactic show.
Spider-Man moves out of the way when the horde of bats attempt to hit him, but then he just forgets he's capable of dodging this when they all try that same maneuver on him again. And instead of defending himself by using his webs or punching the bat drones, he just stands there for a bit so they can slash him some more. He fucking let himself get picked up and restrained temporarily.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Seeing Spider-Man casually shoot an entire net of webs to capture all of the bats makes you wonder why he didn't do this earlier when those hordes of bats were coming after him.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man then tags along Mysterio's giant platform projector and is led to his lair. Spider-Man realizes that Mysterio camps out at a prop house with all of his illusion tech. He pursues Mysterio, but then is immediately distracted by a smoke bomb. Now that Spider-Man knows where his base is, you'd think that Mysterio would be totally on top of stopping him as soon as possible, right? Well, he doesn't bother to use that neutralizing agent that he used on the bridge.
Okay, but Spider-Man entering his base doesn't change the context here. He still wants these fights to be exciting and dramatic, not for them to end immediately. What he finds exciting and dramatic is entirely arbitrary and isn't really worth criticizing from a perspective of efficiency. Again, I think this is the one instance where you could unironically argue there wouldn't be a story if he did this.
Spider-Man believes he is about to be hit by a train. Instead of just jumping out of the way, he decides to let the train hit him at full force?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why didn't Spider-Man's spider sense warn him of the invisible Mysterio android preparing to punch him?
Okay, it's not flawless.
I'd also like to mention that these Mysterio androids being identical makes it impossible for Spider-Man to distinguish the bots from the real one. And Spider-Man has seen the real Mysterio participate in the illusion sequence, or during any of his prior fights. So any one of these could be the real one, who is a normal man with human limitations. One of these androids gets kicked off by Asshat Parker while at a height that can severely injure him, potentially even lethally. Asshat Parker takes off one of their fucking heads off when that could have been the real Mysterio. Asshat Parker rips one of their fucking torsos off. Asshat Parker yanks two of them with parts of the Mysterio android, one of which loses their head because of this.
Okay, it's not flawless.
And if all of that wasn't bad enough, when he notices the real Mysterio walking away behind the curtains, which should now give him a confirmation that this is the real Mysterio, he throws a broken and exposed android at Mysterio, causing a massive explosion that could have killed Mysterio.
Yeah, I hate the fact that I have to keep playing this clip, but I gotta give credit where it's due.
Okay, it's not flawless.
We then see 5 more Mysterio bots show up. Where the fuck were you all earlier?
They're not here to finish the job, they're here to distract Spider-Man.
Mysterio then reveals that he allowed an android of himself to be taken in by Spider-Man.
They're gone.
Wait, hold the fuck up. This isn't a smart plan at all. The cops are going to arrive here and this place becomes a crime scene. They're going to find the stolen tech somewhere in this building, especially considering the reports of Mysterio stealing tech would motivate them to look for where he is keeping them. This is not a time you give up, Mysterio. Maybe use the numerous resources at your disposal.
Mysterio probably had an object blend in with the floor, so it covers the hole underneath. From their perspective, they'll just think it's part of the floor. It's a master illusionist, so it's reasonable to assume he would do something like this.
Web a building, 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 web a building. What the hell took you so long?
Spider-Man tried that already and Kraven cut the web, so he wanted to do it at a random time so Kraven doesn't expect it as much.
Web him, web him, web him, web him, web him, web him.
Kraven can just cut the web, so Spider-Man's looking for an alternative strategy instead of something he can easily see coming.
Missed, and missed again.
How did you not notice him preparing a weapon, you absolute moron?
Okay, it's not flawless.
And do not reflect my very high macho quotient.
Why the fuck did you just stand there and let Kraven tackle you?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why the fuck did you throw him at a car after picking him up? You do realize someone could be in there, right? It's not like this car is in the middle of a crowded street.
He probably saw through the windshield that the car was empty.
Even afterwards, Asshat Parker doesn't try to lead Kraven back into that alley.
Because Kraven is too fast for him to lead properly, so he's focused on not getting hit over and over again.
But even worse, once Spider-Man stops him, he decides to leave him hanging on the streetlight where his hands are still free. Kraven has shown he has a multitude of weapons and gadgets on him, so why the fuck didn't he web his arms too so he can't pull out a weapon to cut himself free? This is how Kraven escapes instead of getting arrested for his crimes. Spider-Man basically let a dangerous criminal go.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm having a bit of a harder time defending the season. While I still currently think it's good, it's gonna have less for me to defend compared to season 1.
Kraven's escape would have been witnessed and reported, given that Kraven is a dangerous criminal. Somehow, Kraven was able to walk across the city with his lion without being caught by the police at any point. He even goes to the Daily fucking Bugle, one of the first places that would have heard of something like this. Not only is it bullshit that he isn't caught, but it's stupid of him to do this without disguising himself to any capacity. He's wearing the same getup that he wore while fighting Spider-Man in front of all of these civilians.
Okay, it's not flawless.
These spiders, they do not exist in the natural world.
Genetically altered to combine traits from multiple species.
Okay, so this is something I neglected to mention in the previous video, but now that attention is being brought to it now, I feel it's necessary to address. These spiders are the only possible explanation as to how someone like Spider-Man exists. Fucking Kraven, being the bonehead he is, was able to realize that the ESU lab created Spider-Man, and Kurt Connors knew that Peter was bitten by the science bug.
Weren't you the boy that was bitten? By the science bug! You know it!
If Kurt knows about the bite and Spider-Man shows up around the same time, how the fuck did he not figure out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man?
Yeah, and it's probably not a good idea to have the person responsible for the spiders to know that Peter was bitten, especially if the person is meant to have a connection with Peter and is intended not to know that he's Spider-Man.
Also, wait, hold on a fucking minute. If these spiders have the potential to create fucking Spider-Man, then why the fuck aren't these spiders kept under more secure conditions? They for some reason ditched the security system they had in the first season, but you'd think they'd actually maintain such a system this whole time, since these spiders being out and exposed is incredibly dangerous.
Okay, fine, the plot of this episode isn't good. You win this one.
Now, remember what I said earlier about how the word of who Kraven is should be out in the public? Not like that matters anyway, considering Kraven states that Spider-Man beat him in a fight in front of Warren, which indicates he is a supervillain of Spider-Man's. If the police are tracking his movements and find out that you are going to make a deal with a dangerous criminal and give him superpowers, then you're in deep trouble. Not just with ESU, but legally as well.
Under what evidence, though? If the cops enter the building, then he's not going to proceed with the deal, and he can lie about being under duress.
What are you gonna do if the experiment doesn't work? What if Kraven tries to kill you?
There's a shot implying he has a gun on him.
What if this straight up killed Kraven? How are you gonna cover up the body? Are you gonna walk outside in the open and carry it?
He can lie and claim Kraven forced him to make something without telling him what it is, then took it for himself and ended up dying.
Kraven is Spider-Man grabbed in place, and he has all these really sharp claws that he can just impale Spider-Man with right now. He doesn't do that though. Instead, he just tosses him away.
But Kraven wants to have a fair fight. Immediately taking out Spider-Man would just be a cheap shot to him when Spider-Man doesn't have a stabbing ability.
This is not the time and place. Get off the fucking phone. You have a threat you need to take care of. You are also risking your identity since Liz can hear the background noise.
Peter doesn't know why she's calling. It could be an emergency for all he knows, and Liz might not be able to tell him later.
How the fuck did Kraven just escape simply because Peter took his eyes off him for like a couple seconds? How fucking far could he have gotten? You gonna look for him at least, right? How could you lose him?
Okay, it's not flawless.
As long as it takes.
Thanks.
Does Liz just not give a crap about Peter's black eye? Isn't that just wonderful?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of weird that she never comments on it.
In this prison funded and run by Oscorp, Rhino, Sandman, Vulture, and Mysterio were being held here. Already got some concerns for their escape. Now, we have to remember that in Season 1, a similar set of villains managed an escape, and you'd think this would incentivize increased security measures, right? Well, somehow the Vulture was able to escape the prison without being noticed. His cell had to be opened by a guard, and his hologram needed to be touched in order for the prison to realize that the Vulture had escaped. In the last season, the prison needed to lose power for an escape to be possible, yet, somehow, without any kind of power outages to account for villains being able to escape, The Vulture just somehow got out of the prison with only a hologram left behind to make such an escape seamless.
It's definitely a lot to think about, but I think you can piece it together. I assume Mysterio impersonated a guard and took them out at their home, then used said impersonation to enter the prison, alongside any pieces of illusion tech that could help. This would lead to discreetly removing Toombs and the others from the prison, since he does have cloaking tech.
Then we see that Beck was just an android this whole time. This becomes even more confusing, because you're telling me that all this time, they didn't realize that Beck was an android? I assume Mysterio's primary suit would have some kind of connection with his androids in order to justify their ability to talk and move on the spot.
Well, I don't think a remote is necessary. That's more so for customized movements. He could just provide a command for the body uses, and that results in it performing basic tasks, such as obeying authorities or standing in a prison cell. The remote is just an additional option for him.
And then this episode just goes, oh yeah, Sandman and Rhino escaped. How is this possible?
Do not approach walls or door, or tranquilizing gas will be released to immobilize. O'Hearn, Alexander. Do not approach walls or door, or air pressure will be activated to contain Marco, Flint.
The only way to counteract the security measures put in place for Rhino and Sandman was to cut the power to the prison. When did this ever happen?
Mysterio could have had the fake guard disable the 2 countermeasures in secret.
It's even worse for Electro, because he wasn't even given one of those high security cells either. He's still allowed to walk around in the suit without proper restraints. Those wrist restraints shouldn't be enough because he was able to break out of those easily in the first season.
Maybe these newer ones are improved so he can't do that, hence why Kraven had to cut them open.
Especially when you consider that Electro has friends out there. What if they try to break him out? All they need to do is break open those wrist restraints.
But what's the solution? Just not allowing Electro to socialize at all in this hospital? He needs to have some freedom to socialize and work with a psychologist. And given the limitations humans have, there's not much they can do to stop supervillains from breaking in.
Now, the first step is to have Kraven use his sense of smell to indicate where he is.
He's here. I smell him.
This is a decent start if you have eyes watching to see if someone suspiciously departs and checks on where they run to in order to pinpoint which of them in the crowd is Spider-Man. It's not like the villains have access to drones that can go invisible and spy on people alongside a large network of cameras. And if someone wants to tell me that this plan could fail because there's too many people to guess who Spider-Man can be, then do this plan later when people are headed home and ready to go to sleep.
The goal isn't to deduce Spider-Man's identity, the goal is to simply kill him. Drawing him out would serve that purpose, and the presence of civilians make it easy to keep Spider-Man in the fight instead of running away.
Before we proceed, I need to preface by saying that the power balancing of this fight is... it's a mess. This happens later in the fight, but let's just take a look at this right here.
That your best shot?
Oh snap. How you like the new? Electro can casually burn tires. Tires, which are made of an insulator known as rubber, and are known to require lots and lots of heat before they start melting.
Non-conductive, you say? Gorgeous!
If Electro can just melt non-conductive material this easily and instantaneously, this makes you wonder why Spider-Man isn't burnt to a crisp every time Electro shoots at him. He thinks the burnt tongue is bad? His entire body is done for because of what Electro can do. Imagine how many of the previous fights in this series, where Electro is shooting to kill, are now damaged by such an implication of his power set. Even if you want to claim that Spider-Man is durable enough to handle this for whatever reason, Electro should still be burning through Spider-Man's suit. It doesn't even matter if it's rubberized because look at what Electro can casually do to these tires. Peter's suit should be melted, which includes his mask, meaning his secret identity should be exposed.
I think the survivability is fine, given that he can survive being held by Molten Man, which is our only other reference for his ability to withstand heat, but I guess I'll agree that it should have burnt his costume and mask included, which definitely would change how things play out.
Oh, and if he's shooting to kill Spider-Man, then holy fuck, all of those people on the ice rink are dead. They're off the TV show, except for Flash, of course. Wait a minute, sorry. It shouldn't matter if Flash's crutch and cast are non-conductive because of the newly established melting tire ability.
Okay, it's not flawless.
And make your play. No! Beaky's awfully protective of that glorified tiara.
So then, wear a helmet. This is standard practice for fighter pilots. Vulture looks like an even bigger moron for leaving this exposed, because he's fought him for 2 episodes and lost in both.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why the fuck is Electro standing and doing nothing while his teammate is being shot at by Spider-Man's webs? If Vulture is clearly struggling, then Electro would start shooting at Spider-Man while he is occupied. isn't the master planner watching this? Fucking instruct Electro to go shoot at Spider-Man. Why are you failing at basic communication? You should be screaming at him to make sure Vulture doesn't get stopped.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Electro's got your back!
Oh, I'm sure you did, buddy. That's why you let him get shot by Spider-Man's webs then pinned to a tree. Why the fuck would you shoot at Spider-Man from that far? You have a less precise angle to shoot at him. Even if he hits Spider-Man, this could possibly hurt Vulture. Get in closer.
Electro is known to be a more impulsive and angry fighter, and he's also a bit desperate to impress Doc Ock since he idolizes him, so he wasn't thinking ahead of time when doing this.
So Electro's blast resulted in a fire. So not only is there a danger of the electricity reaching down on the ice rink again, but there is a fire nearby an area that was crowded with civilians. Let's see what Mr. Great Responsibility is gonna do about it the second he sees it.
Equipment plate? The equipment plate? Farce.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Somehow, Vulture survived that crash. He fell down a high height and was crushed by the Christmas tree. That old buzzard is dead.
Vulture wasn't falling down at terminal velocity. The tree was tipping over. He also might have not even hit the ground because the tree itself was falling faster than he was, so Vulture could have grabbed onto one of the leaves to stay further from the ground.
And where the fuck is his spider sense? It just bailed out on Peter twice in a row.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How the fuck is Electro missing these shots? For a decent time window, Spider-Man isn't even moving side to side, and because of that is now made an easy target for Electro to shoot at. Yet to Spider-Man's convenience, he's only shooting around Spider-Man rather than directly at him.
Yeah, that's a bit of weird animation, I'll give you that.
And Sandman and Rhino show up at this exact location. With Rhino and Sandman's strength, they should easily be able to break out Electro. I know someone out there is going to say that Sandman and Rhino aren't supposed to be intelligent so they wouldn't think to do this, but that ultimately doesn't matter because the master planner is watching all of this unfold. So how would he not think to tell Rhino and Sandman to break out Electro when this should be very easy for both of them?
I assume Kraven did that since Electro gets extracted by the end anyway.
And instead of punching Spider-Man, he should have just grabbed him and stabbed him immediately. Master Planner wants Spider-Man dead as soon as possible, so he should be ordering his villains to fight with intent to kill.
But Otto was willing to respect the wishes of his teammates, which is why he was going to allow Rhino the impalement for winning the coin toss, so he'd let Sandman and Rhino have their fun with Spider-Man before killing him.
Rhino, toss him over. I want to pull off that mask and see who he is before we end it.
What? If you want to do that, then stop tossing him around because you lose restraint over him when you do that. Just have Rhino hold his arms apart so Sandman can unmask him.
Sandman was trying to do just that, but Spider-Man dodged him at the last second. And these two are literally morons, so them not thinking of this is fine.
Also, Rhino was baited into being dropped into the water, which Spider-Man knows he'd sink in easily due to the nature of his weight. Did Spider-Man even check to see if Rhino made it back to the surface okay? Doesn't seem like it. Now, in fairness, Spider-Man does give him a scuba tube to try accounting for this, but this doesn't really solve anything. Firstly, being as dumb as Rhino is, how is he even gonna know how to use that thing properly? What if he panics and ends up breaking it in the process with his raw strength? You need to actually be trained in order to scuba dive.
We don't see this, but Spider-Man is still close enough to view Rhino, so he could have seen Rhino put the tube over his mouth to breathe. I think that's a reasonable assumption to make, even if we transition over to the next part of the fight fairly quickly.
On top of this, being dropped in freezing cold water will cause you to hyperventilate during the first minute.
Rhino has armor that would protect his body temperature, so none of this appeal to reality would apply.
Spider-Man was relying on Rhino jumping onto the ice. What happens if Rhino jumps onto the ice, but it immediately breaks upon impact and he falls right through before Spider-Man would have had the chance to give him the scuba tank?
Then I'm sure Spider-Man would have pulled him out, or went into the water to toss him out.
Mysterio could have just toyed with Spider-Man with illusions while Kraven frees the rest of the villains, and this would be over with easily.
But even if that happens, many of them would be fatigued or weakened from the fight, so it's better to preserve them for another plan than to just send them back to the fight again.
Mysterio creates holograms of Shocker and Doc Ock to trick Spider-Man, which makes me wonder, where is Shocker in this fight? His help would be extremely useful, yet nobody bothered to call him for this one?
I assume Shocker was disinterested due to last time's failure, and was more invested in working with the Enforcers.
What would also be useful is the instant weakening agent that Mysterio used on the bridge. Yeah, remember how this broke the fight scenes in episode 1? Mysterio should be using this agent on Spider-Man when he lands on the building after being tricked by his holograms. That way, Kraven can easily just grab Spider-Man and stab him.
I suppose it's fair at this point, considering 4 of the villains were already taken out, so Doc Ock should be instructing them to take the fight more seriously.
Imagine if Mysterio started with this horde of Mysterio androids to go invisible and simultaneously use this weakening agent on Spider-Man.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Kraven jumps through the billboard to attack Spider-Man, and no such warning from his spider sense was given.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Stab him, stab him, stab him, stab him, stab him.
Kraven wants to get his final word in and believes Spider-Man is already restrained.
And Spider-Man, if you were gonna web him like that, then why the fuck did you stop to talk with him instead?
He was trying to wiggle out his arms to do that.
Hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why the fuck did Kraven just stand there the moment he heard the bomb ticking? Why didn't he continue to pursue Spider-Man instead of stopping right there just to stare at the bot explode?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why didn't Mysterio hide stacks of C4 inside his fishbowl rather than relying on the entire suit to charge up and ignite the explosion? There'd at least be the element of surprise there, as opposed to a blatantly obvious indicator that the suit is about to explode, with more than enough time for Spider-Man to escape.
Yeah, this whole plan is stupid, I can't lie.
Wait a minute, Mysterio can make his bots invisible? Why not make the bomb bot invisible?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Like his whole plan was to draw Spider-Man over to the top floor without telling Kraven he was trying to trap him, and he just hoped that Spider-Man wouldn't notice that it's about to explode. If you're gonna tell Kraven the plan, do it ahead of time and do it on the comm so Spider-Man doesn't hear you.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Wait a fucking minute, Mysterio can create androids that trick Spider-Man into thinking he has successfully apprehended him. This happened the first time as well as the second time, because a later episode confirms that this Mysterio right here was a bot. So why didn't Mysterio rig his android to explode when Spider-Man was convinced he's the real Mysterio?
Okay, it's not flawless.
No need for ouch!
Yeah, just making sure you're not a bot.
I'm not.
Hey, here's an idea. Put him through a metal detector and see if they pick up on this.
I think pinching his face is a reasonable enough precaution because there's no way Spider-Man could predict someone having the means to create fake skin to put over a bot. He doesn't know this is possible yet. But sure, I can't tell you how the metal detectors wouldn't have noticed this.
Be ready. The Vulture's still dangerous.
Interesting point. The villains could still be dangerous, and before letting the police apprehend them, Spider-Man should be there to ensure that they can do so safely, especially when dealing with villains like Electro, Sandman, Kraven, or Drowned and Dead Rhino. Oh wait, Peter didn't bother to make sure they get taken in properly despite escapes being possible. He decided to go for some hot cocoa instead because apparently that's more important.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Extractions complete.
What the fuck? Did you just Winter Soldier lightsaber him out of there? No, I'm serious. What the actual horseshit is this? How the fuck did you get him out of there so quickly without anybody noticing?
If Mysterio has cloaking tech, then it should make it easier for the extractions to happen. And like you said, Spider-Man didn't show up to properly secure the villains.
And I mean, if there's this huge hole that can potentially lead to the villains, then did Spider-Man not try to go in there? At least see if he can pick up on any leads?
Maybe he did, but it obviously wouldn't lead anywhere because why would they leave a trail behind?
And oh my fucking god, you're telling me that Doc Ock's arms walked all the way here on their own without being caught onto by the police?
It depends on what path it takes. It could have used the subway or the sewers to get around before moving outside.
Why the fuck is this the plan when this can garner police attention? Why not just send a villain to break him out?
Because that makes Otto look more guilty than if his arms acted on their own and forcibly took him.
Why didn't you break out with Kraven and me?
When building a secret empire of super criminals, the safety and obscurity of a hospital bed has its advantages.
What advantages? Like constantly being monitored by security? How the fuck would you be able to plan anything with eyes on you to make sure you don't step out of line?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man searches for the master planner, leaving Octavius free to plan.
This is some bizarre dialogue. Spider-Man can't find you anyway had you remained hidden at a secret base, where you can call and make orders freely without anybody watching you.
Okay, it's not flawless.
No! Countdown's activated.
Shut it down.
I'm locked out! We'll never get clear in time.
Well, we tried, Adrian.
Osborn's time will come.
Wait a minute, you just did this to try killing Osborn? As if you can't just send Rhino to the Osborn penthouse and obliterate it to shreds while he's there? Or send Electro to vaporize him? Or send Sandman to suffocate him? Killing Osborn should be super easy. How the fuck didn't they accomplish this ever.
Otto doesn't actually care to kill Osborn, he's giving a half-hearted attempt to Vulture. He cares to prioritize his control over the world, and he can always attempt an alternate plan later to kill Osborn depending on how much the Vulture demands it.
And with all of these surveillance capabilities, you're telling me that Doc Ock never attempted to find out Spider-Man's identity. He literally just needs to set up scenarios where Spider-Man is needed and see who leaves the scene before Spider-Man shows. Peter would be a good suspect for him right now because the entire front view of the building was visible.
So I explained why he didn't need to do this in episode 3. For this episode, Otto is basically planning to take over the world through remote means, so he doesn't need to take out Spider-Man. He doesn't even think Spider-Man can touch him right now.
Is anyone hurt?
I can't tell you.
So go check on them, asshat Parker. I mean, you saw a fucking vehicle collision. You should be able to tell that people are hurt. But ignoring this detail, you should still check on those people, as well as what caused it. A vehicle collision is your cue to leave, yet he just stands there, not urgently trying to change into his costume.
He does check on them, he just didn't change into his costume to respond to it, because he doesn't know if it's just some generic accident. He doesn't know if this calls for Spider-Man until the Vulture shows up.
This sequence of events is confusing as hell. Spider-Man crashes into the truck's windshield, but then the next cut is Electro vanishing from the vehicle and Spider-Man is suddenly sitting facing forward like he's a passenger.
Okay, it's not flawless.
What do you want?
The global portal codes stored at Homeland Security's New York HQ.
And you will provide them. But I don't have clearance for the codes. I couldn't get them if I wanted to.
I think you could, with a little help.
There's literally no reason to use Captain Stacy for this. Captain Stacy is not in a high enough position to obtain these codes. Doc Ock should instead be using the higher-ups and threatening their loved ones in order to force them to provide him with those codes. This is completely unnecessary and draws out their process.
How do we know that the other higher-ups have kids? I ask this because that's easier leverage than a loved one who's an adult. Because adults have a responsibility for their children, it creates added pressure. Generally, adults are more paranoid with the potential dangers to children than other adults. So if these higher-ups don't have children, then it wouldn't be as easy to force them to get the codes versus using Captain Stacy.
Electro's gone, but you'll tell me where to find the girl.
Wait, Electro just left without Tinkerer? Why? Spider-Man can now interrogate Tinkerer and find their location if Tinkerer is intimidated enough. The police can do the same once Spider-Man turns him in.
I don't think Electro himself would think that far, but I imagine Otto would have Electro keep the fight in the city so his base remains intact, so I guess there's an issue there.
Where the fuck are Kraven, Rhino, Sandman, and Mysterio? They were all extracted from the last episode's fight. They would prevent Spider-Man from ever getting in Doc Ock's way.
Okay, it's not flawless.
You have these guns mounted on Vulture's wings now? Where the fuck were these in the last episode?
He didn't need it and Spider-Man would have dodged it easily. This is solely to create a distraction.
Oh, let go of the bars!
Remember the melting tires? Yeah, Gwen is dead after this.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Doc Ock grabs Spider-Man right in the face. Easy opportunity to stab him with the rest of his arms. Instead, he repeats his commonly made mistake of throwing or hitting Spider-Man out of the way so he loses grip and allows Spider-Man to escape. Again, with all of your experiences fighting Spider-Man, you should know that Spider-Man can tank these kinds of blows and that stabbing him brings you a more immediate solution.
Given that he's using the blades more frequently in this fight, I'll give him that.
On top of this, when Doc Ock is throwing Peter around, he is smashing the tech that he just established he doesn't want destroyed.
Take this conflict elsewhere.
So the master planner doesn't want all this tech damaged.
He's not following his own rules that he just panicked about Electro breaking.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Was that? It was nothing.
This only works if it's clear that Peter was only hallucinating Eddie out of fear of him still being out there, but the end of the episode established that Eddie was actually showing up in random places in order to make Spider-Man paranoid that he has returned.
Knew if I made you paranoid enough, you'd lead me right to the one I love. Thanks, bro.
So when Spider-Man goes to the building he just saw Eddie at, how does he lose him? What was Eddie's plan if Peter goes to swing towards him? Why isn't Eddie doing this during situations where Spider-Man is occupied with a threat? He's risking himself being caught easily by doing this.
I think it's a mix of both. I think Peter is kind of losing it since he also sees the Green Goblin when Harry talks to him in this episode, so some of this is Eddie, some of this is in his head.
Instead of punching him away, just grab and stab. The fight is over if you do that.
He doesn't want to do that immediately because he's enjoying the fight at first, and he wants to make his death more eventful, hence why he forms himself in this way.
Now, how about a little trim?
Yep, Spider-Man's dead. He's dead. There's no fucking way he's breaking out of this. Sandman just needs to keep him held in place and stab him right there. It's over. There's no way Spider-Man is getting out of this one. Why the fuck did you allow him to shoot his webs? You should have stabbed him immediately so he can't just break out or draw out the conflict.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Did Sandman fucking leave solely because the police arrived? He's fucking invulnerable to them. Just grab and stab Spider-Man and leave. The police can't stop him from escaping with his big score. Why the fuck is Sandman shrinking himself near water rather than just walking away?
Okay, it's not flawless.
And if you're being constantly stopped by Spider-Man every time you're doing a job, why not travel to another city where Spider-Man can't stop him?
Oh, come on, Hammerhead. Just give me another shot.
Maybe. I got a couple ideas.
Why do you need Hammerhead? Again, just fly to another city then rob a bank. You'll be loaded by that point.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Eddie Brock? Alarm. But Eddie... gone.
Bro, once again, if you're trying to make Peter paranoid, then you should only be showing your face right before you know he's about to deal with a crime. Just doing so randomly is gonna make Spider-Man swing over to him and see what's up.
Like I said, he's probably not even real this time. The only time he would have been real was when Spider-Man was actually fighting Sandman, or when he records the video at Flash's party.
Spider sense or something?
That's funny you should say that.
Spider-Man, you could have dodged that easily. You were facing Sandman. You saw that coming.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why isn't Sandman using this opportunity to grab and stab Spider-Man? Why run away and hide when he can just capitalize off his hit and then grab and stab Spider-Man?
Again, Sandman is someone who has grown to enjoy the fight. He's even smiling during this fight.
So, Sandman seems to be having a change in heart. He decides to spare Spider-Man rather than ending him. And later in this episode, he is shown to be willing to help people. He only accepts Hammerhead's later job for the money, and saves the crewmen once he realizes that they're in danger. Makes enough sense that after hearing Spider-Man's words of advice, why the fuck did he roll out of the building in a giant ball through a path where people could be walking and smash the top of a cop car while rolling around the crowded streets? Mr. Consistent Morals here just risked a serious amount of deaths. 2007 called. They want their inconsistent morals back.
The difference is, that version of Sandman has shown more regret for his actions, even seconds after it happened. This version of Sandman is only thinking about what Spider-Man said, and ultimately changes once he sees people in active danger. In this scene, he doesn't hit any civilians and likely has a bias against police officers. And even then, he didn't fully crush the car, which would have been indicative of not having the intent to kill.
Why did Spider-Man just stand there rather than continue to pursue Sandman? At least make an attempt to ensure he doesn't get away.
The animation seems to imply that Peter was fatigued at the moment and couldn't catch up to Sandman.
Just give me my payoff. That's it? Ah, this was supposed to be my big score.
Sandman literally can't be stopped by Hammerhead. He is in no position to make the terms of their agreement.
What if he sends other supervillains after Sandman? That changes things, and Hammerhead has the power to do this. And Sandman isn't very smart, so he wouldn't easily think to find a way around this.
Looks like the beach is getting closer to us.
What the fuck? You don't need to crash the ship in order to stop it. All Hammerhead's guys need to do is to take the oil from it. You could have just slowly but surely stopped it so nobody gets hurt or killed.
Sandman doesn't think this will kill them. He thinks at worst it'll shake them up a bit, and he still tells them to abandon ship.
Eddie Brock is such a fucking idiot. You do realize that Peter is gonna follow you out whenever this party is over, right? He's not just gonna let you walk off, he's gonna keep his eye on you.
So let's say Peter does confront Eddie. What's he gonna do? He can't arrest him since there isn't proof that he was Venom. He can only just talk to him, and Eddie could word himself in a way that makes it ambiguous if he does have the symbiote or not to play on Peter's paranoia.
And you're going down. I don't care how big you get.
Oh, really?
Sandman is a giant now. Sandman just has to grab Spider-Man, then throw him super far away in order to prevent Spider-Man's interference. It's not like the end of the fight shows he can do exactly that, and since this battle shows he's willing to kill Spider-Man, then he just has to grab Spider-Man, then stab him.
That spike wouldn't kill Spider-Man. It's not fully sharpened like the sand blade we've seen beforehand, so this doesn't indicate he's willing to kill Spider-Man. And again, Sandman gets enjoyment from his fights. He also doesn't think he'll lose because he's a giant now, so in his eyes, he can afford to screw around.
Why is he throwing jabs that would damage the ship? Not only would this hinder Hammerhead's operation, but it would risk getting the crewmen killed while they're trying to abandon ship.
Because Sandman is the type to act first, then think later. In the heat of battle, he's letting his obsession get the better of him.
The first issue is that Venom isn't adjusting its build to look like Peter. While this is absolutely smaller than how Venom looks, it's still noticeably larger than Spider-Man, and if you're gonna have a bigger build, at least use Peter's red and blue suit.
That's the smallest Eddie could possibly be. It's also not impossible for Spider-Man to change costumes and even fake parts of his build to commit crimes under a separate identity. That would actually be smart for Spider-Man to do if he truly did what Venom was trying to allege he was doing. Now, something I need to note straight away is that Venom is not as pragmatic or calculated as villains such as Doc Ock, Green Goblin, or Tombstone. Their plans tend to be more logic-oriented, focused on achieving direct aims. Venom is a troll villain. He does this purely for fun. He's not basing his plans off logical end goals. So even if this framing plan doesn't stick, it really doesn't matter, because it still gives Peter something to stress over, and that's something Venom gets to toy with. So if his plans for framing or identity exposure don't hold up, or are done in the more direct and practical ways, it ultimately doesn't matter if Venom is having a good time doing it. And that's entirely arbitrary, not something we can really judge because taste is different for everyone, especially psychotic villains.
We've been tracking his condition for months. Since entering the Colonel's system, the spores have multiplied exponentially.
Wait, this has been happening for months? Oh, so they surely should have precautions in place in order to contain him, especially since Kurt already had a suit ready, knowing he'd grow so large and potentially hurt people. And how exactly did the spores enter his system?
Colonel Jameson was infected by the life form?
He's infected with microscopic spores that hitched a ride on the life form, the way gum sticks to a shoe.
Wait, so if the spores can hitch a ride on living things that easily, this shit is fucking contagious. You can't just let them walk around people when they could also be infected with the spores.
Okay, it's not flawless.
I've had limited success destroying individual spores with electricity.
Wait, then just keep doing that constantly. Did you raise the juice? Did you have John come in and get a daily dose of electric shocks to slowly but surely get rid of the spores?
He probably did the small doses, but if he did increase them, that has a risk of killing him.
Can you move? Can you unlock the door?
Do it yourself.
He's asking this because if he can't move due to injury, Peter has to be more cautious in terms of how he pulls him out.
Venom picking a fight with Spider-Man and exposing himself to the public completely shatters the narrative that Spider-Man is back in black and on a crime spree, because now we have confirmation that Venom, who has a similar suit on him, is now active.
But there's no footage of this, and Venom isn't around any civilians. And even if it does get exposed, that's not a big deal. Venom has other ways of trolling Peter.
All we want is to destroy every single aspect of your life.
So then go after his loved ones if that's what you want. Tell Tombstone his identity.
Venom doesn't want to do that yet. He finds it more fun to draw this out.
When we're done, the whole world will hate you almost as much as we do.
So you do care to maintain the narrative that Spider-Man's a piece of shit to people.
Or he's saying this just to torment him.
John Jameson would have seen this when landing, considering he drew Venom's attention when he was about to land. This is probably worth asking about after Spider-Man and John Jameson team up to save the building full of people.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why was Spider-Man going to let that rubble fall onto him? Move out of the way. You have spider sense and agility.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why would you slam him into the ground? You don't know how much this could hurt him.
He has a pretty good estimate if John could land on the building with him. He's arguably stronger than Spider-Man himself.
What if he landed on any of the civilians after you messed up his intended trajectory in making that jump?
He didn't have a choice if he wanted to escape, and John was still away from villains when he landed.
Why are you just hanging around and watching where any of the civilians can spot you and point to you as the reason for all of this?
Because he's amused by this.
If Spidey wasn't responsible, then why did he run?
Because he doesn't want his identity exposed. He just told this to you.
And answer a few easy questions like, what's my name? No thanks.
And again, you were present when Venom was fighting Spider-Man. You would know that there was another web swinger who had a black suit on, and only appeared around the same time Spider-Man's supposed crime spree started.
Okay, and that part's an issue, but John doesn't see the value of a secret identity the same way Spider-Man does. So why would he be understanding of his decision to run?
How does the truck driver explain Spider-Man getting webbed out of the area soon afterwards?
Does he even know it's a web? What if Spider-Man hired someone to pull him away so he can play pretend? Why would this driver trust Spider-Man?
Colonel, I'm glad you're here. I could use a little help.
Dodge that, you fucking idiot.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Tell him that Venom was fighting him right before John arrived. Jog up his memory. Tell him the context of who Venom is and that he returned recently.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Try 2 million volts.
2 million volts? All at once? Dude, what if that kills him? 2 million volts is incredibly excessive. Even at over 11,000, this kind of shock can kill someone.
Okay, but he's a superhuman, even more enhanced than Spider-Man, so he can survive this.
You have to find Venom. It's not safe for Gwen. Or anyone I care about.
then why the fuck are you at school? If Venom is out there, someone who constantly stalks you and wants to ruin your life, you need to constantly be on alert for that and remain prepared. He should even surround himself with areas that have the potential to cause vibrations.
Okay, the school locker suffice then.
Or even tell the police that this is a weakness Venom has and how this can easily remove the symbiote. Tell the police to have sonic cannons prepared for whenever Venom shows up.
Spider-Man doesn't start working with the police as much until Captain Stacy seems to have learned his identity, which I'm guessing is after the Identity Crisis episode, so Peter can't even be sure the police would listen to him or try to have him arrested for being a vigilante, or if they still believe that Spider-Man was framed.
Venom has countless ways to prove what he's saying rather than just expecting Jameson to run a story by his word alone. I mean, this already makes his framing of Spider-Man go down the drain, so his credibility is fucked. But Venom can take photos or videos of him fighting Peter Parker outside of his costume, which would force him to expose his powers. Had he attacked him at his school or the streets, Peter would be forced to fight him without his powers.
Venom's not taking the situation seriously. If anything, having people constantly question Peter when they're uncertain can cause a buildup of pressure rather than exposing his identity immediately. It's also a way to potentially test people's loyalty to Peter since it's uncertain whether or not he's Spider-Man.
Interview everyone Parker's ever met!
I'm on it. Wait!
Go home, Peter. Get a good night's sleep. He's a kid, not Spider-Man.
But just in case.
We're ready to run with this.
Based on no evidence whatsoever, you're going to entertain and help spread a rumor that would ruin a kid's life.
But Jameson thinks Spider-Man destroyed his son, so he's not going to approach this as rationally.
Why would Jameson want Peter Parker and Spider-Man, his main sources of income, to have their lives ruined? The Daily Bugle wanted Peter to have an exclusive deal with them because of how much money Spider-Man earns them, and because Peter is the only one getting decent pictures of Spider-Man. How is the Bugle going to stand out moving forward?
Because he broke the story on who Spider-Man is, and it doesn't matter if Jameson loses this as a constant source of income, because Jameson believes that exposing Spider-Man would be the right thing to do.
We're quite unimpressed with the Bugle. They haven't run our big scoop yet.
Bro, I'm quite unimpressed with your planning because you haven't dropped a shred of evidence yet despite having countless ways you can do so.
He's not in a hurry to. He's having fun and is not even pissed off that the Bugle didn't run the story yet. Dangling the possibility over Peter's head that it could happen is something Eddie enjoys.
After Spider-Man's identity was revealed, it gives even more reason for Peter to start preparing for Venom in the ways I suggested earlier. Why isn't he doing any of that before constantly walking around Gwen or anyone else he cares about as Peter Parker? This risks Venom attacking him in public and exposing him, since he'd be forced to use his powers if he wants to survive.
But if Peter doesn't commit to his usual activities, that'll create suspicion that he's Spider-Man. He's also considering the possibility of just admitting the truth because he feels guilty for lying to people.
Every time I swear I'm not Spidey, I'm lying to people I care about. Maybe I should just admit the truth.
Are you telling me that had that phone not rang, Peter and Gwen were just gonna cheat on Liz and Harry?
No, because that doesn't happen later when they're in a similar position.
We know exactly how many people your secrets will hurt, and we can't wait to watch them all turn against you.
They'll turn against Peter because they know he's Spider-Man, this beloved superhero? Wait a minute, you literally tried to kill his loved ones and Spider-Man had to be the one to save them. Who the fuck do you think will actually be turned on?
Eddie doesn't care if anyone turns on him. All he cares about is the symbiote. And under Eddie's cynical view, it's possible that people turn on Peter. Just merely associating with him puts them at risk, so they're all forced to make a choice between standing by him in spite of the burden Spider-Man brings, or leaving him to save themselves. It's a tangible method of turning people against Peter.
Venom also forgets that he can just web Spider-Man's entire body like he did in Peter's backyard. He's struggling while on top of Peter, yet doesn't fully restrain him with his webs. Had he done that, he'd be able to rip his mask off easily.
Again, he's not taking the fight seriously. No matter how it goes, he can spin it towards his direction.
That proves it! If he wasn't Parker, would he resist this much?
Bro, this guy could be Miles Morales and he'd still want to keep his identity a secret. Wanting anonymity is not exclusive to Peter Parker.
Venom is being disingenuous on purpose. He's feeding them bullshit talking points that would bother Peter.
Stop stopping to talk and web him further. I mean, fuck, at this point just smash all the cameras in case he actually manages to remove your mask.
Peter's trying to make a point to cover his identity so people don't trust Venom. Plus, if he destroyed all of the cameras at once, then they could spin that against him.
Why don't you bait him to a bell tower? Bait him somewhere where you can use loud vibrations against against him.
Or play keep away to avoid the risk of Venom unmasking him.
Why did you punch him away from the cameras rather than webbing him entirely then unmasking him?
He already knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so this isn't a detriment to him. And again, Venom doesn't mind if he draws this out. He probably laughed to himself at how Peter cowardly left the fight.
Why didn't you web Spider-Man's legs too? You've given him a chance to escape.
This one is fair solely because Venom wants the gene cleanser and needs it to be intact. And he does get fairly annoyed once the mask gets taken from him.
Recognize this gene cleanser. After your identity's revealed, we'll pour it down your throat.
Well, thanks for revealing your plan to Peter rather than surprising him with this.
He doesn't think Peter can stop him and this will scare him.
Rip the mask, 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 rip the mask. Why bring that with you? Why bring that closer to Spider-Man's reach?
Okay, it's not flawless.
And Spider-Man should not be fighting Venom nearby his school. This could get a lot of people killed. He should instead be trying to bait him towards an area where a loud vibration would remove the symbiote. The 90s series thought of this.
He eventually does by going to the school lockers. It's also worth noting that the science lab can be used to harm Venom. If he tries to bait Venom elsewhere, there's a good chance that Venom catches up before he gets there.
Why is Venom throwing Spider-Man away from the cameras? You could have just webbed his entire body and unmasked him.
Venom is enjoying the fight now that Peter is putting one up. He gets to prove once again that he's better than him.
Why the fuck didn't Spider-Man let go of the helicopter the second Venom was on it? He should be leading him away from the helicopter so it doesn't crash. He instead decides to crawl onto the helicopter, which keeps the fight on the helicopter, which could get destroyed in the fight and crash in a populated area. Oh fuck, not again.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Did you just throw a fucking object at Venom and have him crash through a wall where people could be behind? What the hell is wrong with you, asshat Parker?
Okay, it's not flawless.
He starts to use the school lockers to cause loud noises. Keep doing that. Schools are full of them. You don't need a bat to do this, just start banging them with your hands.
Venom attacked him, then threw him downstairs before he could do that.
He even throws him in a locker room, which is already stupid considering we know what lockers can do to Venom, but even when on top of him, he's still not webbing him all over to restrain him. This isn't even a good hold, because Spider-Man's webs are free. What if he webs the gene cleanser then smashes it? What are you gonna do then?
The only reason his hold failed was because he was briefly distracted by Flash, which allowed Peter to slip through and counter Venom.
Why doesn't he smash the gene cleanser immediately?
So he can use it on Venom.
Why not start banging the lockers? Even take one of Flash's crutches and use them to bang the lockers.
He could do that, but he has a very slim opportunity to feed Venom the gene cleanser. It's a worthwhile shot.
Why is Venom trying to take the gene cleanser with his one arm, rather than using his webs to grab it while others restrain him?
He doesn't think he needs to put that much effort because he's way stronger than Spider-Man and wasn't expecting him to feed him the gene cleanser.
Wait a minute, why does the gene cleanser even work on Venom? It bonds with Eddie Brock then gives him power, it's not a genetic change.
Well, it could be, even if it's temporary. Even if that's not the case, you can argue that Eddie's DNA makes the symbiote itself physically incompatible for bonding.
We learn that Foswell has been going undercover as Patch to gain information on the auction meeting. He wants to use this information to break a story for Jameson. Did he at no point bother gathering any kind of evidence to convince Jameson that there is a story? Did he bother recording any of the conversations there to add credibility to what he's saying?
If he did that, then he'd be violating laws against wiretapping, and this could put the Daily Bugle in legal trouble. Recording their conversation wasn't considered enough for him. What changed his mind was Peter offering to use his camera to take photos of what happens.
Maybe pictures would change the Jolly One's mind.
Spider-Man sees a helicopter about to attack the police. He waited until after it fired shots at them before jumping in to help, when he should have done that the moment he saw it.
Or not.
Here's the problem with your little scenario. You're assuming that Spider-Man watched that then took action, when the shot could be taking place concurrently with the other shots, and they're showing a different perspective to show Spider-Man's reaction.
Spider-Man later gets a hold of these specs, and the first thing on his mind should be to destroy it considering how dangerous it is in the wrong hands. He, for some reason, doesn't think to swing away once Hammerhead reaches him. He should immediately be trying to leave to a safe place to smash this thing, yet he isn't.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is a big problem. If the specs are this dangerous, then Spider-Man should destroy it, and there are many chances he has to do so, and it's weird how Rhino of all people is the only one who thinks to do this as soon as they get the drive. I'm skipping all the instances of me saying he should smash it to avoid redundancy.
Why isn't Silver Sable wearing a mask? Her father's dealings are supposed to be secret. His organization is meant to be operating under the radar.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Sable, you have a gun. Why aren't you shooting Hammerhead with it?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why aren't you having your helicopter shoot at Spider-Man while you do that? What made you stop shooting at Spider-Man after restraining him?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why opt for bolas when you have a gun on you to shoot Hammerhead? Why go in for a kick? Being in close range with Hammerhead is super dangerous. Stop trying to fucking kick him all the time. You have a gun. You have a helicopter that can shoot hordes of bullets.
While you can argue that Sable's battle strategy against Hammerhead was poor, she was still occupied with the fight with Hammerhead, so she couldn't order her pilot. Though I suppose you could argue that the pilot should have shot at him, though.
How did you not dodge Sable's hits? You are way faster than her.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How did Rhino know where Kingsley would end up? Doc Ock would have given him the address of the warehouse, and Rhino didn't know about Kingsley's bait-and-switch tactic. Why didn't he go there?
Otto also didn't know that Hammerhead and Sable would try to steal it from Kingsley, so he figured that the better bet would be sending Rhino to his house, which is where I assume this parking lot is near.
How did he even get here unnoticed?
The cops did notice, they just didn't show up immediately.
Why did Doc Ock only send Rhino and not alert the Vulture, Mysterio, and Kraven to retrieve the specs for the Rhino suit? Doc Ock's investment in buying this is based on wanting his criminal organization to remain in power. Why didn't he ensure that nobody else gets their hands on this?
This could be too dangerous for the remaining members, which include Vulture and Kraven. Rhino is specifically immune to bullets and explosions, and he's the only one with a personal stake in this. Mysterio could be helpful, but Otto may not know of his plan to use a bot to impersonate himself.
Wait a minute. Doc Ock could have used any of his villains to break out Electro from Ravencroft. This was literally done 5 episodes ago. Kraven and Rhino can literally break into the building and release Electro no problem. Why the fuck didn't Otto break out one of his most powerful allies?
Because Electro became a liability. His antics are why his base got destroyed, and Electro is known to be mentally unstable, so this would justify Otto deciding not to release him.
Why not get rid of the competition by having his villains assassinate Hammerhead and the Sable family, as well as anyone playing major roles in Tombstone's empire?
Because Tombstone could order the creation of more superhumans. He could have some at his disposal that Otto wouldn't know of. It's better to avoid needless gang wars, given what Tombstone could have access to.
So let's establish some context, everyone. Kingsley is hanging off the ledge and could fall if not helped. Hammerhead and Sable are fighting each other right by the actual specs. Rhino is just watching this. What is Spider-Man doing?
Oh, I got the thing on the thing. What do I win?
You!
I win me? That makes no sense.
What was that all about?
I get it, okay? I know people love this quip, and I do too. But guys, Spider-Man stopped to do this while an innocent man was hanging off a cliff and needed help.
Rhino could have blocked his view during this interaction. How do you know for a fact that Spider-Man saw him? It's entirely possible that he landed at a bad angle and couldn't fully see him.
Okay, after tanking a car hit like that, Sable should absolutely be dead.
A couple things. 1, it appears that Sable is wearing some kind of armor. 2, the physics are exaggerated in this universe, so humans in this universe can withstand more force compared to real life.
Why the fuck does Sable stop up close to talk to Hammerhead instead of just shooting him down? Where's her helicopter? Why isn't it shooting down any of her enemies?
Because she wanted to gloat to Hammerhead in the moment, but I'll give you that the helicopter should be active.
But first, we get him down here.
No, that's a terrible plan. It's fine that Rhino would think this is a good plan, but Peter should not be okay with him doing this. Tell him to run up the higher floor. He would want to do this in a less destructive manner.
Okay, it's not flawless.
I want that drive! Get the point?
Look, if we're gonna work together, you gotta get better material.
Can you shut the fuck up? God damn, Sable is cornered. You can web the specs out of her hand. What the hell are you doing? Trip her. Web her face.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Web the helicopter. 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 What the fuck took you so long?
Okay, it's not flawless.
How the fuck did Spider-Man lose tug of war with Sable? He's way fucking stronger than her.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why does Spider-Man stop to talk with Rhino while Sable is standing right there? Just go after her.
Okay, it's not flawless.
What? No high fives? No kumbayas? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
Stop stopping to joke around. What Rhino is doing could get the entire building leveled. Why aren't you trying to de-escalate this? You've just partnered up with Rhino, and he has shown he does have the potential to do some good, like he did just now. Spider-Man even recognized this with Sandman, and trying to convince him of it worked. So from Peter's perspective, he could try this on other villains he may see good in, and this may work in his favor. Why wouldn't he try to get Rhino to recognize his potential for good, after he just helped him do some good for the city? Rhino might reassess his actions. He may start to use his abilities to start helping people like Sandman did. Spider-Man instead decides to aggravate him, which causes him to level the entire building.
I kinda understand where you're coming from, but there's more of a point to the joke than just humor. The joke is that Spider-Man is surprised that this didn't result in a more peaceful outcome between the two, which is meant to hint that Rhino doesn't have to randomly attack him. It's also Peter's way of trying to lighten the mood so Rhino doesn't stay agitated.
Oh, and thanks for exposing how easy it should have been to take down Rhino this entire series.
Got the idea from Miss Manfredi. Figured if it worked on me, it'd work on Mindless over there.
You've got to be fucking shitting me, Captain. You literally used this method to restrain Rhino at the prison. How the fuck didn't he ever think to use this during the other episodes where Rhino showed?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why didn't Sable use this more on Spider-Man during the entire fight? Why didn't she use it on Rhino or Hammerhead? Large areas of knockout gas would fucking guarantee her success.
That's because she was using guns or explosives on them, which is ultimately more dangerous.
You went to the Enforcers? Since when does a big man go straight to the hired help?
Since the first day they learned of Spider-Man. Who do you think they sent after him?
That's not exactly what Hammerhead meant. He meant going to hired help without consulting him. And Tombstone has utilized less superhumans because there are enough to distract Spider-Man right now.
Why am I suddenly out of the loop? With all the freaks running around, Spidey's distracted enough.
Spider-Man.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Peter, you were literally right next to a traffic jam. The place you landed and unmasked yourself is within the view of the people in the cars, and he's choosing that area to change into Peter Parker. What are you doing?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Slow walking and gloating long enough to recover? How generous of you.
This is what people do when they're arrogant and believe they have complete control of the situation.
Especially knowing you're under a strict timetable. I mean, come on, you have him buried in rubble right there. It's not gonna kill you to take 10 seconds to end him right there, especially compared to the time you'd have to spend dealing with him when he comes back.
They don't think Spider-Man can win, judging by this battle where the Enforcers are upgraded, and it's better to just leave than worry about the cops getting closer to them every second.
I'll just make do with what I've got.
Why throw Ricochet that far up? Can't you just web him to the side of the elevator shaft?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Where was his spider sense for when Ricochet returned?
Okay, it's not flawless.
We'll squash the bug.
Squash the bug! Squash the bug! Don't you know any other tunes?
Holy shit, dude. I love Josh Keaton as Spider-Man.
Well, that's one thing that never changes.
Spider-Man is crushed under all that gold. You don't think confirming the kill would benefit you guys? What if he recovers and comes back after you, as he tends to do in this series? You three managed to nearly kill him earlier when he was at his best. Why not finish him off while he's in a weaker state?
They're too much in a hurry now, even to the point where they won't take more gold when they can.
Skedaddle!
But there's still so much gold!
Can't risk it. Listen, you want to tell the big man we lost his take?
No, thank you.
Pardon me, boys.
Motherfucker, why would you ever announce your location like that? Why give up the element of surprise? Just swing over and attack them. That's far more efficient. They're literally about to start a speeding train. You want to get in there as soon as possible.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How is Spider-Man catching up to the train after having stopped mid-air as the speeding train is escaping? Spider-Man's not faster than a speeding train. There's a reason he couldn't reach Lizard while he was on a speeding train. A train which isn't even speeding as fast as Shocker since the Enforcers are actively rushing to escape.
Okay, it's not flawless.
You have him dead to rights here and could immediately end him, yet they take their sweet time long enough for Spider-Man to recover.
That's why he's comfortable taking his sweet time. He thinks he has him dead to rights.
Now, if I wanted you to get away with the gold...
Spider sense?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, you have Spider-Man knocked down here. Why are they not finishing him off? They have a chance right here, right now.
Their tech is damaged and they don't have much gold left, so they're desperate to leave as soon as possible.
Hey, here.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Stab him, stab him, stab him, stab him.
Okay, so we don't have the clearest references for this, but I think it's reasonable to assume that Tombstone, as he traditionally does, has skin that can resist blades or even bullets. The implication in his fight with Spider-Man is that his skin is insanely durable, so it's possible that he can't even be stabbed. Trying to use a blade against something too durable for it can actually damage the blade.
Wait a second, you didn't grab his gun before holding him like that? He had two free arms, why wouldn't you restrain the one where he's holding a gun?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Liz has been nothing but nice to you this entire series, yet in front of everybody at the table, he decided to ignore Liz's kiss and apologize to Gwen instead, then leave without saying goodbye or even a sorry. Peter didn't even apologize to Liz, he just said he'll come back soon. The only person he even gave an apology to was Gwen, who he isn't currently dating. Are you fucking serious?
Okay, so this was definitely rude of Peter, but when you really think about it, Peter's kind of an idiot. At least when we're talking about emotional intelligence. The first episode does establish this, and MJ even points this out to him.
She's gorgeous.
But you distract too easy.
The problem is that he's too afraid to say no and hesitates to jump at an opportunity. These mixed together is why he can't give a clear answer on who he wants to be with.
He's just a little confused. Hi, Petey.
Hey, Liz.
Okay, a lot confused.
Also, he probably didn't even see Liz trying to kiss him because he was busy looking at Gwen while talking to her. And while he didn't say the words, "I'm sorry," he probably thought Liz knew he felt sorry. Keep in mind that he also says, "I'm sorry" to Flash before leaving, so it's not like he only said it to Gwen.
Like a sorry, Flash, you're on your own.
In his eyes, Liz already knows he's sorry he has to leave.
Why doesn't Silvermane have a gun? Sure, this armored suit is effective, but had he had a gun on him, he'd be able to get the job done much easier.
He doesn't need one if he can release shockwaves, and I doubt bullets would work as well if Otto can block them, and Tombstone is insanely durable. Area damage at least makes it difficult to block, not to mention his armor allows him to deal serious attack damage.
What about the knockout gas Sable used? Does he not have any supplies of that on him?
That can just as easily be used against him if he tried that, and Doc Ock and Tombstone can escape this fairly easily.
Wait, why doesn't his face have a cover? Not just for protection, but for secret identity purposes. He can't be caught doing this stuff while under his alter ego. That risks him getting back into legal trouble.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Oh, so that's Silvermane. Wow.
You had the element of surprise, you asshat. Just attack Otto. What the hell was your plan?
Okay, it's not flawless.
What is Doc Ock doing while Spider-Man is holding this? This is an easy opportunity to stab Spider-Man. Stab him. Stab him. Stab him. What are you doing?
He could have been checking the area to see if it was safe to proceed, since Tombstone and Silvermane are still active threats.
Did Silvermane just blast Doc Ock and cause an explosion on the way of his fall? Okay, Doc Ock should be dead.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why didn't Doc Ock block Spider-Man charging at him like that? His arms can literally block bullets. You're telling me he couldn't block Spider-Man coming after him?
Okay, it's not flawless.
And with the way Spider-Man blasted him out of the building, Doc Ock should have been knocked out.
As discussed earlier, humans in this universe have stayed awake after taking hits like this.
What kind of guy abandons his girl on Valentine's?
That's not fair, Harry. You know he needs the people to help his aunt.
Yeah, but he didn't need to be a complete asshead about it. Guess you're just cool with that, though. As long as you get what you want.
Okay, but Harry didn't make that point. All he said was that Peter left.
Otto just tanked a punch from Silvermane, who is not only very strong, but has metal plating on his fists. That should have been a knockout punch, especially after everything Doc Ock has taken earlier.
Yeah, this is pretty fair considering they actually showed that Silvermane is too strong for Spider-Man to resist, and while Spider-Man himself pulls his punches, Silvermane does not.
Doc Ock then gets pulled to the ground by Tombstone. That also should have knocked him out.
But you could argue that the arms resisted in order to reduce the force that Tombstone's pull would have. Normally, yes, this would kill Otto, but the arms are still resisting to a degree.
Octopus calling Craven, do you read?
Why the fuck didn't you bring Craven to the meeting to begin with?
Because it could draw too much attention, and he's not exactly needed in the meeting. Plus, it makes it appear as if Otto is looking for a fight, which is not the impression he's looking to give. Also, he didn't expect his comms to be busted.
Where was Peter Spider-Sense when Doc Ock grabbed him at the bench?
Well, Otto was basically in plain sight, so you could argue that this is Peter's fault for not paying attention.
This hold is fucking terrible. Both of Spider-Man's hands are free to web him. Why are you just standing there and talking? Grab his arms. Make one of your tentacles stab him.
I suppose his hold should be better, but he's making a point to Tombstone and Silvermane, which is especially important because, publicly, Spider-Man and Tombstone have helped each other before.
Both of your hands are free. Shoot him with your webs.
Okay, it's not flawless.
What the fuck are the police doing? Are they not evacuating any of the civilians? Why is everyone just standing in the background and the cops aren't doing anything?
Okay, it's not flawless.
This is the cause of our troubles. As soon as we dispose of this pest,
you could just stab him with a tentacle blade since he's restrained and unable to do anything right now, or you could waste time talking and trying to convince your enemies to do something you can just do right now.
But either of them could try to stop him for optics reasons. He's trying to convince them to get rid of the bigger problem.
Peter, you could web his face, you could punch his face, you could punch him until he's knocked out.
Even if he did knock out Silvermane, who's to say the armor itself will stop? He doesn't know how this works and he's primarily resisting to avoid further damage.
Spill hamster, how have you blocked our comm?
Blocked your comm?
My father!
Daddy's out of the picture, princess. So be nice.
Just shoot him. What can Hammerhead actually do to you?
What if he has leverage? What if shooting him comes with serious blowback? She doesn't know the full circumstances of the situation, so she can't just shoot down Hammerhead.
Why doesn't Hammerhead account for this either? Was he just going to risk himself getting shot by anybody pissed at him rather than leave as soon as possible? What if Doc Ock had stopped Tombstone and Silvermane and decided to come back after you? What if Silvermane allowed for Doc Ock to remain occupied with Tombstone and came here just to kill you?
Green Goblin helped Hammerhead do this, so he could be watching the fight take place, Any information he needs could easily be communicated to him.
Why is Doc Ock bothering with Silvermane? He's already been stopped.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Doc Ock grabs both Spider-Man and Tombstone, but decides not to stab them.
He wants them both underground so it's easier to fight them there. An enclosed space is easier for Otto and his arms, while limiting movement for Spider-Man and Tombstone.
You're in an enclosed space, web slinger. Where can you hide?
Why did you give Doc Ock a warning before attacking him? His arms could have quickly reacted to you going in for the kick.
He gave it way too late for him to respond.
Which, honestly, they should have, but for some reason they didn't.
They didn't react in time because Spider-Man was 5 feet away from him and moving incredibly fast.
And that kick from Spider-Man should have easily knocked out Doc Ock, especially after everything else he's tanked before.
If you slow down the footage, Spider-Man kicked him in the metal area that's most protected.
Why didn't Spider-Man's Spider-Sense warn him of Tombstone?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Did you see the paper? Tombstone made bail!
Wait, what? Why? They've got him dead to rights. They've got evidence gathered by Patch. Everyone who gets arrested is going to out Tombstone, not to mention the countless witnesses. They're going to check his personal files and find that he has contacts to all these supervillains. He's in big trouble. He shouldn't have made bail this easily.
That may be true in the real world, but given that this is a fictional universe operating on different laws, as long as they don't contradict anything, that's fine. Now you might ask why the law works this way, but it was implied that Silvermane was previously in power in the city. Through his connections, the law regarding bails could have been bent to his advantage so that higher class crimes could still be bailable. And even under this law, the law enforcement still heavily watches Tombstone, so it's not like he got away with it.
Why the fuck did Peter ignore the stairs with the exit right there? Why is Blackie ignoring this too? Are you trying to draw out this conflict? What the hell is going on?
Okay, it's not flawless.
You're telling me that Mark doesn't want to kill Spider-Man because he thinks he's a hero and he appreciates how he saved Liz, but isn't at all trying to reason with him before fighting him? Why not ask Spider-Man for help? If you believe he saves people, you know he'd help save you out of your current situation.
He doesn't know the extent of Green Goblin's surveillance. If he's possibly tracking his every move, then he can't afford to reason with Spider-Man. Plus, if he tries consulting any scientists, they could get killed by Green Goblin. It's not that he doesn't trust Spider-Man's intentions, it's that he can't work with them in these circumstances.
Mark, why the fuck did you put your hand out? Just allow them to leave. You know that could burn MJ's hand.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How the fuck didn't Spider-Man notice Goblin flying in the air? He was swinging that exact direction he was leaving. He would have noticed this very easily.
I think the implication is that the Green Goblin turned the corner right as Spider-Man got close, which may be convenient, but whatever.
Why isn't Blackie leaving the building once the fight started? Is he stupid?
He's trying to minimize the damage. Also, he was assured that this would be resolved soon.
Take it easy, kid. We just cleaned up the last mess.
Chill, Blackie. This will be over soon.
Also, look at how powerful Mark's heat is. Every time he grabs Spider-Man, it is an easy opportunity to kill Spider-Man, yet he somehow fails it at every chance he gets.
Or, this indicates that Spider-Man is insanely durable, even to extreme heat.
I've read your notes. You're planning to test subdermal armor on human test subjects?
Are you kidding me? Why the fuck are these files on the ESU computers? This should be kept on separate files on your super secret bad guy computers. What the fuck are you doing here? You're supposed to be doing this under the radar. Do you have any sense of secrecy whatsoever?
Okay, it's not flawless.
The way you left these out, it's as if you wanted me to find them so I'd stop you.
Why would he want that to happen?
There is no way you're using my lab for these dangerous and unethical experiments.
The board backs me.
You think the board will back you when they learn about this?
Now, if you're smart, you'll keep your forked tongue quiet.
I'm so done!
And slink off with your tail between your legs.
So Kurt's a fucking idiot too. Why would you allow these files to be accessible on the ESU computers? You should have wiped those immediately if you wanted to cover up your ties to the lizard.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Huh, Spider-Man has a play he needs to attend. Liz is counting on him to be there for her, but he can't because of his Spider-Man responsibilities. I wonder what could have prevented him from making her show.
Hey, just remember, I'm only here because Normikins asked me to test the vault's security.
Huh. Spider-Man offered to test the vault's security system, a test that could have been done at any day to Spider-Man's convenience, something he was asked to do and not forced into. Something he could easily reschedule if it was ever inconvenient for him. You're telling me that Spider-Man didn't even try to make Liz's show, even after all the mountain of reasons she has to hate him? After what happened with Mark too.
Okay, so there's a couple things to note here. While Peter can schedule this at his own convenience, Norman would have likely said that it needed to be at this hour, and would have stressed the importance of testing the prison to keep supervillains restrained. And it is implied that after Spider-Man spends an hour in the prison, he's going to arrive at Liz's show soon afterwards.
In a few minutes, I'll either have to make my move, or ask to be released. If I miss Liz's play, I might as well settle in here permanently.
But the reason he didn't make it was because Goblin hacked the prison and released the inmates. Now, you could argue that it's still on Peter because he would have cut it close to make Liz's show, but this really comes down to Peter trying to make both sides of his life work. He thinks he can fit both of them in one day, but something unexpected happens that causes him to fail.
Montana talks about forming an alliance and Mysterio being a bot, and while this is happening, Spider-Man just isn't webbing them all up.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Also, Mysterio being a bot and not being noticed makes no fucking sense. They would put him through a metal detector to see if he's human, or check his fingerprints.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Why the fuck aren't these bats swarming Spider-Man and causing death by 1,000 cuts? Especially when Spider-Man is caught by the rope.
Like I said earlier, Mysterio likes to be theatric in his encounters. Killing Spider-Man immediately would defeat that, and we wouldn't have a story.
Where the fuck did he get the rope from? Do they just have those lying around the prison?
It's a bit of a blink and you miss it line, but he briefly mentions that he tore apart some of his sheets to make this.
Knew tearing and weaving all them sheets together was time well spent.
Why isn't Spider-Man jumping away while his spider sense is going off?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Spider-Man's legs are exposed in this hold. Why isn't he kicking Silverman right here? He took a really long time to do so for some mysterious reason.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How the fuck is Mysterio down for the count after Spider-Man's kick? The bot is still intact. Why did it just stop fighting?
Okay, it's not flawless.
Someone needs to lure the cons here, seal them in, and manually open the tanks.
Oh, like Green Goblin? Someone who has a built-in gas mask?
Lack my fashion sense and built-in gas mask.
He can end this immediately and we know he's trying to kill Spider-Man. Why doesn't he have this built in throughout the entire prison? If the guards are given gas masks, wouldn't it be a better precaution to have the gas capable of being released throughout the prison? Green Goblin could do that for any corridor Peter enters and it's game over.
Green Goblin could do that, but he's trying to have fun while doing it. He's not the type of villain who takes out his enemy immediately to be practical. Now, he's not a full-on troll like Venom, because Norman creates more practical plans with clear end goals. Rather, he devises these calculated plans with room for him to have fun with them as well. I also don't see the evidence that Green Goblin was trying to kill him. Molten Man doesn't count because Green Goblin never expected him to be all that successful. He even admits without surprise that he was betting on an amateur.
Oh well, that's what I get for betting on an amateur.
This is simply his way of toying with Spider-Man while torturing someone for his own fun.
And once Mysterio is destroyed, surely the real Mysterio would know this, right? Does he send in any backups to help his fellow villains escape? Did he even care to help break out Doc Ock so his hard work helping him isn't all for nothing?
Mysterio is not established to care at this point. We don't know what his motivations even are. For all we know, this bot was keeping Spider-Man and the cops distracted from ever searching for Quentin Beck, and he only engaged with this fight to gather data on Spider-Man. His motivations by this point aren't clear, and probably won't be since the show was unfortunately cancelled, so criticizing this isn't entirely fair.
Green Goblin throws a bunch of bombs at Spider-Man. Black Cat interferes and helps him. I guess this makes Green Goblin decide to leave and give up? Goblin still has bombs on him and could attempt to bomb them from other directions.
He doesn't have to kill Spider-Man right now in order for his plan to work. He was just attacking him while it was convenient, but left as soon as it was turned into a 2v1. He doesn't want a 2v1.
That kick into those goons should have killed that guy.
It's a heightened universe, as I've already said. I'll be skipping over those points made for any of the other goons.
Oh my fucking god, Peter was gonna cheat on Liz again.
Because he was under the impression that they were ready to move on from Liz or Harry. He simply needed a quick reminder to break it off with them first.
I apologize, Spider-Man.
Norman Osborn never apologizes. Did you not fucking mention this when having Chameleon impersonate you?
Okay, but who's gonna guess that Norman is being impersonated based on that? How literal should people take that statement about him apologizing? It's almost as if this is part of Norman's plan to toy with Spider-Man's perception of reality.
Goblin then attempts to kill Spider-Man afterwards. Why isn't he using the Gobweb inhibitor as he is falling? This would restrain Spider-Man and make his survival damn near impossible.
Because that's not what the Green Goblin currently wants to do. He's more interested in taunting him by constantly cutting his webs.
Spider-Man manages to get Goblin blinded by his webs. Okay, you're gonna web him to the side of the building now, right? I mean, you knew to do this last season. Surely you'll do it now, right? Guess not. Instead, he's just going to stick to the glider and do nothing.
Okay, it's not flawless.
How did Goblin vanish away so quickly? Only seconds ago was he shooting at him and he was shooting blind.
Okay, it's not flawless.
Okay. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him.
So again, Green Goblin wants to mess with Spider-Man rather than kill him off right away. Now, to address my previous counterpoints, I'm aware that he did things that could possibly kill him many times before, such as using Molten Man or the Vault inmates, as well as trying to bomb Spider-Man or making him fall. But part of the fun for him is experimenting on what Spider-Man can or can't take. He's not looking for the quickest method of execution.
Let's see what cracks first. My cobwebs or your bones? Well, that taught us nothing. Perhaps a more drastic experiment is required.
Also, the reason this plan even fails is because Harry shattered the windows to spread out the gas, which is something Norman, while proud of Harry for doing, never expected from him.
How the fuck did he set up all these pumpkin bomb-filled towers? This would have been noticed. You can't discreetly set up all of these pumpkin bomb towers and not be caught onto by the authorities.
Why not? Why couldn't he have used his goons to impersonate construction workers and hide all of these bombs? These are concealed inside, so it's theoretically possible to discreetly build them.
How is Spider-Man managing to dodge all of these bombs unscathed? They're literally firing rapidly and all over him. It'd be causing area damage and the shrapnel would be flying everywhere. Spider-Man should be dead from all of this.
We don't see any shrapnel from these explosions, so that's completely irrelevant. Not all bombs result in shrapnel. Spider-Man also has the ability to dodge bullets and lightning, and has spider sense, so he could just move far enough from the bombs to avoid taking damage. And even if some did hit him, it's shown that Spider-Man and the Green Goblin can survive explosions.
Spider-Man also has these hordes of spikes to deal with, not seeing how he's gonna dodge all of these easily.
Because he's in an open space with plenty of freedom to dodge these shots, he's also highly flexible so he can pose his body to avoid them.
Spider-Man just blinded 3 aircrafts and made them fall. You're telling me he didn't bother trying to web them up so they don't crash in the middle of the streets where civilians would be?
Okay, it's not flawless.
I guess Norman is just going ahead and explaining everything to Peter, all of his plans and how he pulled everything off. Why does he care to do any of this? You've been trying to kill him this whole part of the season. Just take him out. Every time you grab Peter, you can just electrocute him. Yet instead he stops to explain himself because apparently that's a priority for him right now.
Yes, because he wants to brag in his face about how he tricked him in order to trigger a reaction. And I've already explained earlier how he wasn't trying to kill him.
You had no right to blew up your client!
Did you just place a bomb on his glider? That's something you do if you're trying to kill the Green Goblin, which is not in Peter's character to do by this point, especially in front of Harry.
Green Goblin scales to Spider-Man, who has survived falling off an entire building when Venom was pushing him down. Green Goblin has also survived an explosion to the face. Peter's mistake was not realizing that the glider was headed towards the other bombs and caused a chain reaction.
Don't apologize. I never do.
How the fuck did you survive? No, how the fuck did you survive unnoticed? His glider was definitely disabled and the chunk of bombs would have ended him.
How do we know that? He could have been blown towards the bottom of the building early on, which would result in him not taking all of the bombs at once.
But even after the explosion, people would have seen him escape because this explosion would draw so many witnesses.
What if people are evacuating as a result of these bomb towers? That makes it entirely possible that the building he crashed into could have had little to no witnesses near the bottom, which would enable him to remove the suit and run elsewhere. I mean, he could straight up steal someone's clothes and use that to disguise himself on his way home.
Spider-Man would have gone to see if he happened to still be alive, and even if he didn't, surely Harry would out of desperation.
Spider-Man wouldn't know which floor he was on. If he went to check every floor, Norman could still escape in that time if he ended up near the bottom. And to be honest, I don't even think Harry would want to look for the body. He wouldn't want to see what the explosion physically did to him.
What was Norman gonna do after his escape? Where did he even go? I get it's a cliffhanger, but this already seems to have numerous levels of just impossible slapped all over it.
But it's not impossible if I can think of possible reasons he could have escaped. It's not like we saw his head chopped off or anything. We saw him take an explosion that he's powerful enough to survive depending on where he ends up after the first blast. So this is just a case of it being a cliffhanger that may or may not be resolved. I hope it is. That covers all of the 2 videos I've made. Noticeably, Season 2 was a lot harder for me to defend, but the show overall is still pretty great. This was a fun deep dive into an older take of mine, so you can see where I stand now. I might make my own updated review of the 2 seasons at some point. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. That's all I've got to say for now. I imagine this will end up being very long, but I hope it was worth the watch, and if it was, feel free to let me know, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.